It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the annual year-end episode on this Christmas Eve 2017. And I've brought our great Twit hosts all together, Father Robert Balaser, Megan Maroney, Jason Howell. We're going to review the big stories of 2017 and take a look ahead at what we think the big stories of 2018 will be next on Twit. Glad you're here.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 646 for Christmas Eve 2017, the year in review. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Blue Bottle Coffee. Get fresh, high-quality, delicious coffee delivered right to your door. Visit bluebottlecoffee.com/twit for $10 off your first coffee subscription order. And by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. Home plays a big role in your life. That's why Quicken Loans created Rocket Mortgage. It lets you apply simply and understand the entire mortgage process fully, so you can be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. Get started at rocketmortgage.com/twit2. And by GoToWebinar, a trusted webinar platform with over 55,000 customers who have hosted over 2.7 million interactive web events to connect with their audiences. For more, visit gotowebinar.com/podcast. Well, hello, everybody. Happy holidays. Leo Laporte here, and it's time for our annual holiday edition of This Week in Tech. We're recording this a little early, but as the earliest, we'll release it Christmas Eve, and I think many of you will be watching it in the week between Christmas and New Year's. As we have done in the past, we've brought in Twit hosts. This time, though, we got the local folks, which, frankly, I should have done right up front. Jason Howell, all about Android.
Hello.
Good to have you, Tech News Weekly. Wait a minute, stand up a little bit and show us that sweater. He's
sorry.
wearing that Coca-Cola polar bear sweater. Who's wearing an ugly Christmas sweater?
It's a meta sweater.
It's a meta. I love it. I love it. Also from Tech News Weekly and iOS Today, Megan Maroney is here.
I'll just shake my bells.
Both Megan and Jason regularly host Triangulation and New Screensavers as well.
Yes.
With me.
Thank you for having me.
And your phone's ringing.
Yeah, my phone's ringing. I guess I should silence your phones, people.
No, you can leave your phones on at home. Okay. Also, Father Robert Balaser, the digital Jesuit host of This Week in Enterprise Tech and Know-How, and he soon will be skying his way to Rome. In fact, that's the big news of what we're going to do this week is cover the news, the big stories of 2017. But for us, the big story of 2017 was that in 2018, Father Robert will be going back to Rome.
I will be visiting Rome on a more permanent basis.
A more permanent basis or on a permanent basis?
It's about as permanent as we get. I just move when they tell me to move, and they told me to move.
Yeah. But you do get to travel a lot. You worked a deal. I don't know how one negotiates with the Pope, but apparently Robert doesn't mind playing hardball with the Holy Father. And you got, I think, the ability to go to some tech conventions.
Oh, yes. So the way that we've worked out the arrangement so far is minimum of 4 events that I get to pick, just any time, where I'll just be able to leave for about a week and go do my thing.
Very nice.
Every year?
Every year.
Wow. That's awesome.
He's also, can I tell them about the thing you're building?
Oh, of course, yeah.
He's also building a podcast studio in the Vatican.
Yes. A full-featured podcast studio. We'll have a 10-gig connection to the internet, so it'll be relatively quick.
It'd be like Twit.
I'm going over in, 3 weeks? So I'll be in Rome in 3 weeks, and that's the start of it. So I'm going to pick a room. I need to find... It's an old place.
Wait a minute, you get to pick a room? You get to wander around the Vatican and say, this would be a good studio?
Yeah, well, because, this. It's much easier to start with a room that's a better studio than start with a bad room and then try to build it out.
Make it work.
Although everything is marble and stone. So
I was just going to say, I don't know very much about the inner inside of the Vatican, but I have to imagine a lot of bouncy walls and floors.
They're going to make you sing the podcast. Take advantage of that.
Actually, yes. If we do it in chant, the podcast might sound much better.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I would like to request a show with just nuns giving advice on technology.
We actually probably could do that.
Okay, good.
That's an interesting idea.
I would definitely watch or listen to that.
So, but we aren't losing you too soon. You'll be here through June, and that's good news. And then I hope we'll see a lot of you still.
Oh, I hope so too.
Afterwards, I don't expect we'll lose him.
This is my family back here in California.
So that actually was towards the end of the. Did any of you see Star Wars yet? The new Star Wars,
No.
The Last Jedi. No. Okay, so no spoilers.
Other than good.
I enjoyed it.
Okay, good. All right.
Well, he enjoyed,
long, though.
he
It's
enjoyed
2.5
it because he had to
hours.
watch the start of it 3 times.
Yeah, we went to the fan event. I'm looking at the tickets because it's Thursday night, 6 p.m. And this is if you're listening the week between Christmas and New Year's. This is last week, or 2 weeks ago. But so the December 14th, Thursday. And I'm looking at the tickets that says fan event, and I thought, oh, crap, I hope I get to see the movie. I realized I might have bought tickets to some event as opposed to the actual movie. So when we get there, I said, is there a movie? And the guy says, no, there's no movie. And I went, what? And he said, no, kidding. Of course, you get to see the movie. In fact,
that was your first disappointment.
Right.
in fact, they showed because the director, Rian Johnson, came on and said, you're seeing it, you're the first people to see it, aside from the famous people who've already seen it. And I'm thrilled that you're here to see it. And we made a special featurette on John Williams and the music of Star Wars, which is great. We got to see that. And then we started the movie, and the projector died about 10 minutes into it. And everybody's going,
That is so harsh.
But fortunately, they started up again and started the movie at the beginning again. So we got a double dose of the first 10 minutes.
Did you catch anything that you missed?
Yeah,
Okay.
actually a lot. Come to think of it. So it's worth seeing a couple of times, at least the first 10 minutes. And then it's died again halfway through, and they rewound it. But they didn't rewind it at the beginning, but they rewound it a little bit. It was fun. It was good. It kept Patrick Delahanty, who was in line to see the next show, waiting for an extra 15
In the cold?
minutes. In the cold. No, he was in the lobby.
That couldn't have made those fans
Anxious.
Yeah, Patrick's saying, I didn't get a featurette. No, only the people who saw it. We saw 6 p.m. on the 14th. It was the first public showing. So that was a lot of fun. I thought that was a lot of fun. And you can't talk. It's so frustrating.
You can't talk about it. I know.
Well,
This,
it's
2017
interesting.
was not the year of the spoiler, but the spoiler reached a peak spoilerish.
The Star Wars spoilers cause more angst than anything else. I mean, yes, there's a lot of movies, there's a lot of series like Game of Thrones that people don't want spoiled, but you spoil Star Wars and the people will actually physically try to hurt you. It's strange, actually.
Well, and I was sympathetic because I had avoided all the trailers. I hadn't read any reviews. I didn't want to know anything about it. I saw a porg, so I knew that was something, but I didn't know what, and that was it.
Don't tell us what the porgs are.
They're Ewoks.
They're really cute. They're really, really cute.
Cuter
Okay,
than
here's the only thing I want to know about this particular movie. Would you say it was heavy on the puppetry?
No comment.
Oh.
Dot, dot, dot.
I don't want to spoil it.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, you got to see it though, right?
Yeah,
You
of
gotta
course,
see it.
naturally.
Absolutely.
Every year,
It's going to break some records.
every Christmas.
You know it will.
It's in fact, I was talking to Lisa. She said, "Yeah, this is what we do now. The week before Christmas, from now on, is we go see the new Star Wars.
They know
movie.
that.
She's a bigger fan than you are.
Actually, that's the big story at the end of the year. Is that Disney has now acquired Episode 4. Oh, and the rest of Fox. But but I think they bought it just because they didn't own all the Star Wars movies. The first Star Wars movie is still owned by 21st Century Fox. They have now that.
They also get back all the Marvel characters
Right.
that were sold to Fox.
That I
They're going to
dread.
start crossing these.
I know. I was going to say
aren't
the
they?
dread.
They're
The
gonna
dread the
do
day
it.
I see the Hulk in the Millennium Falcon. That will not be a wonderful day for mankind.
Although at the same time, I kind of am curious.
Yeah,
But
I
I
would-
don't know. I think it's a bad idea.
If Samuel L. Jackson returns, never mind. It's good. It's worth seeing. But what we are going to do today, I think, is go through the year and talk about the big stories of the year. And each of you have different perspectives about the stories of the year. So I'd love to hear what you think. We could start in January. And by the way, for me, the big change happened December 2016 when I got my Surface Studio.
It changed
Late
the way
in the
you
year.
podcasted.
And this was this all year I got to do Twit with this giant touchscreen computer. And I have to say, it's not necessarily the computer everybody should buy in their home. $3,000 starting price. And Father Robert had to soup it up with better drives because they put terrible drives in it. But for what I do, sitting here at this table, it's the bit, telestrating and everything.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And it gets out of the way. It's kind of lies flat. So this was, for me, the year of the Surface Studio.
I like that story just because this was one of the surprises. And every once in a while, we get this out of Microsoft where people were saying, this is the design I would expect to see from Apple, not from Microsoft. And in fact, that was the comment that you had in several stories saying the Apple-Microsoft crossover, where you've got a design that's so beautiful, they weren't so focused on the specs, which Microsoft typically does. Instead, they wanted to give a good experience. And this was an excellent experience. As you mentioned, Leo, it's not an everyone computer. Unless you're an artist or a podcaster, it's not the best device for you. But it did show people that there's a couple of things going on at Redmond that we don't know about that might actually blow us away.
In fact, I think it's safe to say that 2017 was the year of the new Microsoft.
Yeah.
That Microsoft really emerged doing things that the old Microsoft would never have done, partnering with Linux. For instance, they released laptops for the first time ever. The Surface laptop, Surface Book came out the year before, but Surface Book 2 came out this year. Their hardware has gotten better and better. In fact, I think it's an interesting new company. Of course, Microsoft released the Creators Update, the Spring Creators Update, early in the year. I think it was a good year for Microsoft overall.
Absolutely. I mean, a big part of that is kind of undoing this legacy thinking around how they run their business. Also, it seems throughout the year they've kind of relinquished their kind of clinging to their mobile efforts and allowing themselves to be okay with the fact.
That was a polite way to put it.
Figuring out how to say this is a polite. Being okay with the fact that they can be a software company on some of these other platforms, and that's okay. They're doing that really well. I know, at least on Android, their apps are really impressive. Anytime they come out with a new app, I'm very curious to see it. They're doing it right.
Same for iOS. In fact, arguably the best apps on iOS and Android come from Microsoft.
Absolutely. And I'm going to push back a little bit on the Creators Update, because I don't know that there was that much for creators. Like, I think there was a lot of...
It was a funny name.
I mean, there was a lot of promise that I don't know if they really delivered on. Like, I haven't heard of a lot of people saying, this is a great operating system for me as a creator. Like, I still do think that Mac owns that in a lot of ways.
How much of that was, though, in response to Apple and Apple's kind of falling away from the Pro market? I think pros were, in fact, we're going to have a story in March. Apple actually apologized for making such a hash of the Mac Pro. I wonder if Microsoft's looked at the turmoil among Apple users and said, here's an opportunity.
Oh, I'm sure they have looked at that, but I don't know if they've delivered a better solution to people yet. And I mean, so this is great for podcasters, but I think it's really just great for the way Leo podcasts. Like,
I was going to say,
not
imagine any other, way that someone would use this. But I don't know. I mean, I think I tried so hard to use the Surface Book instead of the MacBook, and I just couldn't. There's just...
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to. I just wanted to get used to something else, just to know another operating system. I always go back to that. And maybe it's muscle memory, I don't know. But yes, I do think this is beautifully designed, except for this stinky pen. Like, this is still an ugly pen, and it falls,
I'm actually with Megan on that. You know what would make that pen much better? If you had to recharge it by sticking it into a USB.
Yeah,
then it would be fantastic.
And why did Microsoft make it magnetic, stick to the side of the monitor?
It
That's
doesn't
just so
always
tacky.
stick. I stick my the Surface Book, and then the pen always falls off, and I lose it.
It does tend to fall off the Surface Book. It's better for a desktop where you're not going to be shaking it around and so forth. Look, Microsoft's not perfect. In fact, the Surface had a lot of woes in 2016. By 2017, I think it had settled down a little bit. And I think this what it is a story that you don't see much in technology, which is of a company coming back from the dead.
Right. And Apple's done a really good job over the years, I think we could all agree, kind of hedging their bets on the fact that not only are they creating devices that they say are fit for the people that are using it, you're really made for the user, but they also create very beautiful devices that you're proud to, let's say, pull out of your pocket and show to people. I feel like this was a year where Microsoft really kind of...
Their laptops and this desktop.
They kind of met Apple on that level to say, you should be proud to use this and for people to see it. It's a beautiful piece of hardware.
It's funny, when we go back to January 2017, there were Apple was having trouble. Apple had a down quarter. People were thinking Apple's going to struggle. Apple said, we're going to cut back iPhone production by 10% in January, saying, the demand is off. And there was this kind of sense that Apple might have been stumbling for the first time ever. We can look back in hindsight and say that was completely wrong.
Us.
It also began the year-long rumor fest about what was going to be in the iPhone, the new iPhone. We didn't know it was going to be called the iPhone 10.
X.
Whatever you call it.
Oh, wait, where have we landed on that?
No, it's the 10.
I was watching Ellen the other day. Yes, I like
the
Ellen.
10.
And Ellen, she goes up into the audience. I told you this. And she goes up in the audience and asks people for stuff. And she started asking for an iPhone X.
Yep.
And everybody, and when Ellen says it's the iPhone X, I think that carries a lot of weight. Apple's might have some regrets over their naming scheme. Let's go back though to the beginning of 2017. It began, as all years do, with CES, and CES was really, at least in our recounting, and I looked back at the old episodes, all about Amazon's Echo. Was this the year of the Echo? In many ways, I feel like it might have been.
Well, if you had stopped the year after CES, that's what you would have assumed, because it had gotten to that point where you had put the Amazon voice assistant into literally everything. You could walk around. It was in refrigerators. It was in dryers. It was in speakers. It was in headphones. I saw a Amazon voice assistant enabled pen. And once you get to that craze where it's, no, we just want to throw this in there, you think, okay, I guess this is the trend for the year. Oddly, it didn't shape up that way. I mean, yes, it's big, it's important, it's a large ecosystem, but after CES, the buzz just started dying off.
You went to CES this past year. You go every year.
Every year.
I did not go.
Careful.
you.
Don't jingle so hard.
Just make sure I don't actually accidentally press that button.
See, this is
'Cause that could be. The way this hat jiggles is really kind of creepy.
it's kind of
Well,
creepy.
it's kind of like it
Yeah.
goes over and then it quivers a little bit
Yeah.
before it flops back and forth. Yeah, it's
I
kind of
think
weird.
it's a repurposed Big Mouth Billy Bass.
Oh.
I think you might be
It
right.
could actually, you know what? Father Robert, would you hack this and make it sing "Don't worry, be happy"?
We can do this. That's actually easy.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I hope it's over.
Oh, stop
Almost
quivering,
over.
hat.
Wait.
Don't push it again. No, there's no stop button, unfortunately.
There we go.
Oh, thank God. I'm sorry I did that.
okay.
What else was it? Did you remember anything else at CES that... What's funny is we never do this, and I wish we would once in a while, look at CES and say all the stuff they announced was going to happen in 2017.
What happened?
That didn't.
Right. You saw sort of the strengthening of the high-resolution TVs. So 4K was definitely a thing, but they actually started looking at 5K and 8K in even a 10 and 11K just for prototype. And it was interesting because, yeah, they looked nice on the source material that they created specifically for that, but you had the same thought as you wandered that hall saying, who makes anything close to 8K, 10K, 11K resolution source material?
Yeah.
It's just never going to happen.
But that happens every time they announce a new technology. I remember when HD came out, there was no HD content. When 4K came out, there was no 4K content.
Right.
This was for sure the year that 4K hit big.
4K hit big, but it wasn't really the 4K. It was something that came along with the newer 4K TVs,
I know where you're going.
and that was HDR.
High dynamic
Oh
range.
my goodness! I
Big
mean,
difference.
because look, we've gone through the high definition craze, and yeah, that helps. It makes it look better. We've gone through the 3D craze, which I think that was just stupid. Yes, everyone
In
admit.
fact, 2017 was the year 3D TVs died. That was
yeah.
there were everybody announced no more 3D TVs.
Yeah, there was even technology out there. There were TV manufacturers who they could have enabled the 3D. It's like, yeah, our
I
hardware will
wish
do
they'd
it.
kill it in
We just
theaters.
won't.
We got to the Star Wars showing and they gave us the glasses and I went
Yeah.
face palm. Right? Is it just me?
Yeah.
No, it's me.
Like, I don't want to. It's because there wasn't a lot of 3D stuff. I didn't see anything.
gimmicky.
It's gimmicky, and it's like they say, well, we're going to show you this movie, but we're going to make you wear something that'll make it 50% darker.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't, and it was Real D, which is the worst of the
Yeah,
bunch. And I just really, please, they killed it in TVs this year. Let's kill it in movies next year. Can we make a pact
Yes.
to do that?
I'd
No
be
more.
okay
I'll
with
let
that.
everyone
No more
know.
3D. But I agree with you. HDR is fantastic.
When you see HDR for the first time, and especially if you see side by side, like the same material in standard, but then in HDR, you say, okay, that I want. That actually does make a difference. That makes it look better. That makes it look fantastic. It makes it pop. It gives me a representation that I did not think was possible. And for me, more than Alexa, the HDR was the story of CES. It just didn't get reported that much because people still don't really have a way to describe it unless you're looking at it.
This Netflix came out with some really strong HDR content, including Stranger Things 2. Boy, that sure looked good if you could see those blacks, those dark blacks, there was some scenes in it which I am convinced they shot intentionally for HDR. I don't know spoilers again, but there's a scene that repeats several times where Eleven's in a very, very dark, a black room, but there's a spotlighted figure in that. Do you remember that scene? That shows up several times, and it shows HDR because the dark is rich, velvety, very, very dark. No macro blocking, no errors, perfect. And then the stuff that's illuminated is very, very bright, and that requires HDR to really do well.
I'm swiftly realizing we need to get a new TV.
And your wife has said you need
She's
a new
given,
TV.
yes, she made the comment. She said, I think we need to upgrade in 2018. I'm
This
like,
was the year America realized that, we need a 4K TV. And frankly, the prices were so low, almost all the TVs were 4K HDR. Content started appearing.
Content's the other really big component.
Blu-ray players dropped in price. The UHD Blu-ray players dropped in price. So I think you're right. I think although Echo got all the attention at CES, I think TVs. This was also the year Zuck began his 50-state tour.
Oh, and we all got to meet him and shake his hand because he got down on the ground and met all of us normal people everywhere he went.
We got inundated with weird pictures of him looking like a robot.
Or milking cows.
Yeah, he milked a cow.
Yes.
And early in the year, a lot of speculation. I remember in January, of course, President Trump was inaugurated, January 20th. Early in the year, because our minds were on the election, a lot of people were thinking Trump's running for office in 2020. I think that's died down.
You mean Zuckerberg?
Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg's running.
Well, I don't know what Trump's going to do, but Zuckerberg, I meant, Zuckerberg's running for office.
Well,
in
he's said
2020.
many times he's not going to.
Yeah,
but
and I think it did kind of die down.
Well, also, I mean, I think this was not his year. I mean, if any year he was going to go on a tour,
Really good point.
like
Good
this
point.
was this was, to me, one of the biggest stories of the year is how our view of these tech giants really changed this year and how they themselves had to be pushed into the spotlight and take a side. Like they were just so, we're not a content platform. We're not, we don't, we're not making it free speech. But then the world sort of pushed them and said, you know what, like you have to decide whether you're going to let Nazis on your platform. You have to admit that you had a role in the election. And so they just were sort of knocked off their pedestal.
They got beat up bad. Yeah. And I think as we come to the end of the year, it's safe to say that people are much more skeptical of Facebook than they were at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely.
Well, it's not just Facebook. They're much more skeptical of Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, as Megan said, it's got the stuffing knocked out of it.
Yeah.
And not technologically. It's kind of bust into the bubble of Silicon Valley. For the longest time, the country was okay saying, hey, you're driving all this innovation, you're giving us products we want, and you're making us a lot of money. So keep doing what you're doing. This was the year where they said, okay, we like those things, but the culture you've created doesn't exist anywhere outside of the Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's the year where move fast, break things. People started to realize
Stop
you can
breaking
actually break things really, really badly. Maybe it's a good idea to not break everything.
You interviewed Scott Galloway and his book, was it The Four?
Yes.
He is the one he's a professor at business at NYU who said that this is the big four: Facebook, Google, Amazon, and
Apple? No.
I don't remember what the fourth is.
Yeah, it was
it Apple? Are going to face government regulation like never before.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, yeah, I don't know that we are, that we're at a point where you could really deny that that's the case. It really seems like that's the path that's been laid before. The public, the users are holding them way more accountable. I think the government, in not just the U.S., but in the EU and a whole lot of other places are starting to look at these companies through a different lens and realize the greater effect of their kind of running running the way that they have. Roughshod. There we go. Yeah. I think it's inevitable, and I really do. And I felt this at the beginning of this year, where I started to kind of look inward on my use of social media and everything, and be like, all right, so there's some really great things that we've come to love about social media over the years, but there's also a whole lot of capability for that to be abused and for people to be misled in very serious ways. And I think, I think there's no question that possibly in 2018, definitely sometime soon, there's going to be some regulations that hit these companies, and that's probably their biggest fear, because it goes counter to the way they've been able to run their businesses up until now and make an insane amount of money.
We're talking about the year in review for our end of year show. Next week, we're going to have a best of some of the best moments from Twit. But I thought it'd be fun, as we've done in the past, to get together the hosts who make Twit happen and talk about the stories that made a difference to us. We're all delicious. I don't know if you're all having coffee. Megan and I are having a delicious cup of coffee. Now, Megan, let me show you what we got here. This is Blue Bottle. This is a single origin, Mexico, Oaxaca, La Cañada. I have to say, our coffee has been upgraded. We have prestiged up in coffee this year, thanks to Blue Bottle Coffee. Blue Bottle Coffee, so delicious, so flavorful. You'll say, I've been drinking subpar coffee my whole life. Get with it. Get the Blue Bottle. They started with an insane dedication to coffee. And what they do that makes this better coffee is a couple of things. First of all, they look all over the world for the most delicious, sustainable coffee on the planet. 85% is certified organic. Most of the blends certified organic. They take freshness really seriously. That's a thing I think a lot of people discovered with Blue Bottle. The fresher the beans, the better the coffee. When you place your order online, the beans are roasted within 48 hours and delivered directly to you. So they're practically still warm out of the roaster. And when you grind those fresh roasted beans and you smell that amazing coffee aroma, you realize, I don't want any more stale beans. I want the freshness. No sitting on a dusty shelf for weeks. Or the worst is when they grind it ahead of time and then put it in a can and they ship it to you. It's terrible. And don't worry about flavor. Blue Bottle has something for everyone's taste buds. You'll even discover that there are different kinds of coffee. Some people think all coffee tastes alike. Oh, no, my friend. You get some lighter fruit-forward profiles, deep chocolatey espressos. They have a nightlight decaf, which is the best decaf you've ever had. You can stop sniffing the coffee.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just love
Andre
that
is
smell.
sniffing the coffee in a weird way.
Now, it's probably too late to give coffee for the holidays, although a New Year's subscription to Blue Bottle might be a great way to start the year. We just got a new one. This is Ethiopia Hambella Estate Buku. And each one has a card. This is the subscription, by the way. Twice a month, you'll get amazing fresh coffee. And you do want it twice a month. It's only 10 ounces, I think, or 12 ounces twice a month. So that way you don't want to buy like all your coffee at the beginning of the month and have it be stale by the end. This is it. Okay, I'll read to you the description on these cards.
Story time.
It's kind of like, remember the Peterman catalog on Seinfeld? In Ethiopia's coffee lands, Hambella Estate supports its community of workers and their family with uncommon devotion. In this specialty world, Hambella's exemplary washed and natural coffees have set new standards for the famed Gucci zone. Gucci. The estate grows its own cherry, but it also outsources from surrounding neighborhoods. The Buku is one such coffee, named for the farmers in the Buku neighborhood who contribute ruby red cherry. Dry processing often makes for round, syrupy, and unctuous coffee. This one, however, reveals such delicacy and clarity. Both the senses and the mind exclaim with delight. Ha-ha! This is the best one. Okay, so that's the details. Here's the digression. If the coffee were a tone wood, a kind of wood that carries sound waves well, then the indigenous Arabica trees of Buku would play wind-blown songs all year long. Now,
I want to be the person who writes these.
I know.
I can have so much fun with this.
I know. Blueberry, vanilla, and coriander seed, but that's not the one we're drinking. We're drinking, so I don't know what the notes are. I lost the card for this one. The Mexico Oaxaca, but it's good. Now, you're smart. You're drinking it black, but I have to say, the coffees of Blue Bottle are so rich and delicious. Add a little cream. It's okay. It's okay. You don't drink with cream?
I don't. Nope.
You know what?
Straight.
When I drink my Blue Bottle, I'm going to admit a shameful thing. I put heavy cream in it.
But you know what? You don't have to put sugar, which is we put sugar to cut that nasty, bitter taste.
You don't have to. You're right.
Yeah, you don't get that.
Blue Bottle. So here's the deal. BlueBottleCoffee.com/twit. $10 off your first coffee subscription order. While you're there, it's not too late to check out the digital holiday store. Blue Bottle Coffee makes a great gift. Blue Bottle Coffee all year long. BlueBottleCoffee.com/twit. We thank Blue Bottle for caffeinating our broadcasts all year long. I just got a little more.
They also recommend grinders on their website. Don't grind with your blender, as I did.
I had to
Grind with your blender.
Wait,
Why
who
would you ever
grinds
do that?
with their blender?
I've never even heard of
I
that.
don't
have
know
a grinder.
who would do that.
What?
Well, but if you buy a lot of cheap coffee grinders, that basically is what you're doing. They have the blades that spin around just like a blender. That is not how you do it. You need a burr grinder.
Right.
And I think, did you get a burr grinder?
No.
We have one here. You can look at it. Bring your coffee in, grind it, and bring it
Okay,
home.
okay,
And
that's what I
and then drink
have
it the
done.
very next morning.
Yeah.
I just hit it
Get
with
in the
a rock.
habit of it.
We actually have a very fancy burr grinder
Yeah.
here.
I have
the one here, the Baratza is
ground
very
my
fancy.
beans here, and then I thought it took too long, and it was so
I don't know. Does a store? I bet you the store grinder's a burr grinder, but then you can't get the blue bottle. So
Our grinder's okay, but it really would be better if it had been echo enabled. I think, right?
I bet you'll see that at CES.
let me try it. Hey Google, grind my coffee, please.
Sorry, I can't help with that yet.
We're so not useful.
Google hasn't helped with anything today, I have to say.
Nothing.
This is going to be a nice feature all year long in 2018. You're going to get really sick of it, but we got the Google Home Max, the big nice speaker. It's nice,
It sounds
isn't it?
really good.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And I
Sounds
love
like
it.
Google is in the room.
Yeah, it tells us it can't do it in a wonderful time.
And if you turn it upside down, it says, I just noticed I'm upside down. You should turn me right back.
Me upside down.
It's really weird. But anyway, I think it's going to be a regular feature on the
So we
shows.
spent all of 2017 trying to get ourselves to not say the wake word.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we're going to say it to wake it up.
My attitude towards Hey Siri and Hey Google is it should be okay for us to say that because you train it with your voice.
Yeah.
So my voice should not trigger your guy. Now it's different for Echo. Echo, you can train it, but most people don't.
Sorry, I can't help with that yet.
Thanks.
But I'm always learning.
Yep. You haven't learned
I
very
know.
much today.
Learn more quickly.
Well, I think we should do what your mom does, which is she calls it woohoo. Woohoo. Yeah.
She goes, hoo, hoo.
When she
It
comes,
doesn't work, but but when she's on the show,
when
she
she's
was
on the
great.
shows. Yeah.
By the way, this was the year my mom made her debut on the Twit Network, and
Now she's a star.
Now she's a star.
Yeah.
Adorable.
she'll be at this table next year.
I have
in your
never
spot.
before seen uniformly positive comments on YouTube. Not one nasty comment.
I think
shouldn't
that
say
would actually
Yeah,
break
don't say-
YouTube.
don't say that.
I know.
It's like everybody was nice about it. Anyway, this was also at the beginning of the year. You remember that President Trump, newly inaugurated, told the National Park Service to get off Twitter, and that created, as a result, Alt Park Service, and then a bunch of alt Twitter accounts, and they're everywhere. Alt everything. In fact, this was the year Twitter became politicized. President Trump tweets there. The resistance tweets there. And this was, I think, very good for Twitter. This made Twitter's year.
Well, it certainly raised the public knowledge that there is a company that exists called Twitter that you can communicate on. Did it really materially change how the company was doing, though? You would think that in any other time, if the president of the United States of America is using a service or a thing so frequently and for so much important
Essentially, that's how he
communication.
communicates. He's even said that. That's how I communicate.
That's how he was able to kind of bypass, let's say, the mainstream media to get the voice out to the people directly. But even in all of that, you still kind of got the feeling that like Twitter was missing out on an opportunity. Like, how do you turn that kind of attention, that kind of exposure into, wow, Twitter's doing amazing now because the president of the United States is on board. But that didn't happen.
That's always been the bane of Twitter, though, because yes, this got the more traffic, this got the more mind share. There's no one on the planet who any longer says, "Well, what's Twitter?"
Right.
However, Twitter's big problem has always been, how do we monetize that? We really have
and
no
if you
idea
look
how
at
to
this,
monetize
I have
it.
to say, if you look at the stock price, Twitter was in the basement at the beginning of the year. Their stock price was $16.30. They stayed low right through May, but started to improve and a gradual uptick, and they're now at $22. So,
not doing bad right now, yeah.
I think that you can say that in net, this was a good year for Twitter. A 40% overall gain stock price, at least it's one way. Biz Stone also came back in the spring. He said, one of the founders, I'm coming back to Twitter. It needs my help. I don't know if he made any difference. Towards the end of the year, Twitter did make rules that they have been gradually enforcing over the last few months.
Twitter's almost been forced to address certain things that, certain minor things, or I don't know if it's minor to say, the jump from 140 characters to 280 characters, but they were forced to look at a number of different elements of the service that I think up until then, it was easy for them to just bypass, not address at all. And now, they're doing things like, cracking down on who they give the verified tag to. Is that seen as some sort of an endorsement of that person, or is it merely just verifying that person is who it is? Are they cracking down on the content, the messages that are being delivered, and where they've had a very firm First Amendment free speech stance on this in the past? They've been forced to make do a lot of soul searching, I think.
It was also the month, January 2017, that Vine died. But funny thing is that Twitter killed it and said, we're going to make a Twitter video. All the benefit, though, went to YouTube Vine stars who took their act, like Jake and his brother, who took their act from Vine.
Logan.
I don't like to think about that. Jake and Logan. You know that. Is that because you're kids?
Yes.
They watch Jake and Logan?
Oh, a lot.
Because they're in the top 10. They make millions a year.
Yes, mostly just Logan for some reason. Actually, one of my twins likes Jake, the other likes Logan.
I think that's part of it, is the rivalry and then the rival.
Who are these guys?
Jake and Logan Paul.
Anybody over 25 has no idea who any of these YouTube guys are.
There's a point at which you're 25 until you have teenage kids where
And
you're
then
totally
all
out
over.
of the loop,
Yeah.
and then suddenly you know everything again.
Yeah. But it's
Anyway.
interesting, isn't it, that the Vine stars, instead of saying, "Oh, we're going to stay on Twitter," they were pissed, and they went to what is essentially a different medium, because Vine was 6 seconds. How long was Vine? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was 6 seconds.
They went to YouTube and started doing longer form video, but they took their fan base to YouTube, and that is a lesson that
12 million subscribers.
Yeah, no, they're doing great. Make millions a year.
They have a clothing line. Like,
They have a house where in Brentwood.
well, I think one of their houses might have burned down, but I don't know. That could be
They
fake
set
news.
mattresses on fire. They annoy the neighbors. It's a hysterical.
Oh, wait, are these the guys who they had noise complaints because they moved into a nice house and
they
basically
moved
trashed
like
it?
Beverly Hills or somewhere.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Okay.
Brentwood. I don't care.
All right, now I know them.
I mean, Twitter knew this was going to happen, right? I mean, when you shutter Vine and you have a creator community, like those creators aren't going to stop creating. And they're certainly not going to continue creating for Twitter with their Vine camera app that
That's what they
everybody
were hoping.
swiftly forgot about.
Yeah, that's what they were hoping. It didn't work.
No.
All right, what is your favorite Twitter moment of 2017? You have one? My favorite is Sean Spicer tweeting his password, not once but twice.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
The president's former press secretary, who we don't know it was his password, but sure looked like it. And you've done that, right? You've accidentally cut and paste, and
Yeah, I think we've all been there at least once.
I've never done my password.
Maybe not on Twitter.
I
But
didn't press send.
I know I've done it in the chat room once before.
Oh, I've done it in
Really?
the chat room. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't, like, my memory because of Twitter is only about 2 weeks long.
Yeah,
But
pretty much.
just recently, Dog Rates, Matt Nelson, who runs Dog Rates, the Twitter account with cute puppies that are rated, Ajit Pai followed him and he blocked him after he stopped net neutrality, which was amazing. And he tweeted out the screenshots.
In a way, that's the power of social media is, and it's a minor protest, but it's still, it's a very public protest. I think that's very
There it is.
interesting.
See?
Yeah.
Or that's another. Yeah. So yeah, he just said no. You can pay for your cute dog pictures, Ajit Pai.
No free cute dog pictures for you, Chairman of the FCC.
Yeah.
Not if you're going to block net neutrality. That, of course, is maybe the big story of 2018. We'll see
Yeah.
what those, net neutrality, new net neutrality
Click that
rules.
follow button, Leo.
I got to follow We
Yeah.
Rate Dogs. Dog_rates.
There's too many Twitter moments for me to pick a favorite, but I will say that one of my favorite things throughout 2017 that involves Twitter is my own personal discovery and infatuation with the moments functionality. This was the year where I understood why moments existed, and now it's become a daily part of my ritual. It's almost part of how I first check in on what's happening, which is exactly why it exists. But
I have yet to do that. I mean, I remember when they
I've
announced it. That was
fallen
more
for
than a
it.
year ago.
I didn't.
think.
Yeah,
it was more than a year ago,
it.
but this
I
was the
didn't
year
get it.
that I got it.
It's like, wait a minute. No, I want to see the moments from the people I chose, not the moments from the things that you choose. But it's actually gotten quite good.
What tab? So I'm looking at today, and it's kind of dopey. Should I do the news tab?
I mean, you can, and that's actually probably the one that I use the most in order to know, because I'm just not these days. Like, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to like political news sites as frequently as I was at least earlier in the year. This is just a better way for me to jump in, get a quick, take a quick glance at kind of the current landscape of things, maybe read a few of these and jump out, move on with my life.
It is definitely a way to keep your finger on the pulse of the conversation.
I will say, though, it's much more useful on a mobile device than in the browser. Because in the browser, it feels more like it's just a news website. But on the phone, it's much more curated.
You're swiping. It's
like
Tinder for
It's
news.
like, I don't like that. Let's check this out.
Yeah.
Clearly, the Me Too hashtag was a big part of Twitter late in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
In fact, Time Magazine picked what they call them, the truth speakers, the truth tellers, as their person of the year, and all year long. And it started with Susan Fowler's memo. What month was that?
That was
Early in the year.
February.
February.
And I just reread it, and it's amazing to read it now in light of what has happened since then. Because I feel like there was, I remember reading it and thinking, gosh, this is amazing that she was able to say this, that she was brave enough to write all of these things about a company that she had worked for in an industry that she's very young, like that she hopes to stay in. I was like, wow, this is really amazing and unique. And now it's so common.
And it was so risky, as you say, at the time, but it started the whole conversation. It toppled Travis Kalanick, the CEO of Uber, was forced to resign, or at least step back and become a board member only. And it did, I think, open the doors for others to come forward and talk about their experiences. And it eventually became an avalanche that took down CEOs, VCs, producers, people all over in every industry.
And when you
and
read,
it's not over, by the way.
No.
It seems to be escalating.
When you read this certain paragraphs of this, where she went to HR and said, "Here's this engineer that I'm working with who has sent me these text messages that are very inappropriate, implying that like he's in an open marriage, and basically asking to have sex with her." And so she went to HR, had screenshots of the text messages, and they said, "I'm sorry, but here are your two choices. You can either switch teams and go somewhere else, or you can just stay there, and he's probably going to write you a bad review, and that's your only two choices," which is amazing. And basically they were saying this engineer at Uber is so important that we are going to keep him. And then when you compare him to like Harvey Weinstein or keep naming him, Garrison Keillor, like any of the people that you would think are very important, Matt Lauer, like now we have a zero tolerance policy for all of that stuff. And that's just amazing to me. And I do think that she opened the door to all of that. Of course, Jodi Kantor from the New York Times, who did the Weinstein story, she might have been influenced by that. You know?
Yeah.
Very much so. I have to think, though, that a lot of this, and it's no accident that it happened a month after Trump was elected, that a lot of this is stimulated by the fact that another person who's been accused of this by 20 women is in the White House. And people can't seem to do anything about that. Mm-hmm. And so it almost feels like the frustration that women felt with that has now created this movement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And who knows where this will end. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if it didn't end at the White House, or at least get to the White House. Mm-hmm. Maybe it won't ever end. But I think men are listening. And that's the really good news. I think it's going to make a big difference.
There's an important corollary here. If you wind back to the start of the year, and even to the end of 2016, part of this narrative, it's the anti-Me Too narrative, was, well, look at all these people who are having their lives ruined by these unjust accusations.
Fake news.
That was actually the narrative. That's what people were saying. They're saying, look, this new generation of leadership coming in, they're going to get rid of that. And this was a pushback saying, no, you get your facts right. If anything, we're underreporting. If anything, people are getting away with things that normal, decent folks shouldn't be able to get away with. So in a sense, this movement was the counter to that movement, which was a counter to a previous movement. So you've got this
pendulum swings.
Yeah, it's
always.
a swing back and forth.
It always swings.
It's just right now, people are so shocked that pendulum had swung so far to the side of of the perpetrators. And now it's going to swing all the way back.
Yeah.
Well, and now you've got a lot of men. Morgan Spurlock is one example of
Who
men
stepped
are
forward himself.
who are preempting.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that you applaud, because it's still a lot of the things that he came out with, are pretty, not good. They're detestable. But you've got a lot of the men now preempting this Me Too moment.
Good step forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's better than getting outed.
I don't know, but I mean, I feel like it's at least a certain level of progress. You know what I mean? Because prior to that, and who knows their intention of coming out ahead of something? Is that to beat a story that might come out, and so it's still a very self-serving move? Or is it a true look inward to say, wow, this has really opened my eyes, and I want to learn, I want to move forward?
There was a hysterical article, I think it was last week in Gizmodo, that 2017 was the year of the bad apology.
Yeah.
And
there were a lot of them.
There were a lot of them. A lot of them came out of the Me Too movement. People who didn't apologize, the non-apology apology.
Yeah.
They mentioned Robert Scoble's very bad blog post.
I would say he might have been one of the worst.
That was pretty bad.
Just because he was also marketing his company in
That was
apology.
the weirdest
He said,
apology
and I'm
ever.
starting a new business.
Yeah.
In the blog post. Mark Zuckerberg, remember, he went to Puerto Rico and he had to apologize.
That's the best way to demonstrate VR. Let's go to a
for
place where
offending
people are dying.
people. Yeah. And he ended up saying, but VR really is good for empathy. So that made it a bad. I think certainly when you take the apology and make it self-serving or self-promoting, that's not a good way to apologize.
I still don't understand how that actually happened. Like how Mark Zuckerberg actually ended up in a
his excuse
virtualized environment over the top of this stuff, because you have to imagine, I'm sure we could all agree, Facebook, in terms of companies that have money to have smart people to think through these things and prevent bad PR situations, must have seen something coming.
See, I was at
don't
OC4.
understand.
I was at OC4, and I could kind of see how it came about, because the first step would have been, what if we were able to show people what it actually looked like down there? So we set up some 360 cams, and people could actually put on their VR headsets and see. That's a good idea. That actually does promote empathy. But then I'm sure they had someone in the marketing team saying, hey, oh, by the way, at OC4, we're releasing this new feature that allows people to come in as avatars. And they said, well, okay, well, as long as we're going to be doing that first step, why not do the second step? And no one thought, wow, putting cartoon avatars over scenes of devastation, maybe not a good idea.
Yeah.
So it
Big
was one of these,
disconnect.
it was a good idea at first,
Right.
and then just evolved.
What did it evolve to?
Yeah.
Or devolve to?
Still in January.
No, we got to February.
No, well, I got some more Januaries.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Because Chelsea Manning was commuted. One of the last acts, President Obama, before he left office, commuted the sentence of Chelsea Manning. And I think this was a little controversial. People said, well, but Chelsea Manning was a traitor, released information to WikiLeaks about U.S. military operations. She had served a significant amount of time. The sentence was not overturned. It was commuted.
Right.
Time served, in effect. And let's see. I think that, okay, now we can move on to February.
Only 11 more months to go.
Right. We'll move quickly. We'll move more quickly. February began the drumbeat of rumors about the next iPhone. And Ming-Chi Kuo in February, and I want to give him credit, said Apple will make a glass iPhone with wireless charging, will not include a wireless charger in the box. All of that was true.
Okay.
Then we saw a lot of rumors about wireless charging at a distance. Remember the company, I can't remember its name, that said, oh, no, you're going to be able to sit across the room and your phone will charge wirelessly.
That rumor.
I have to say, I want to take credit. At the time, I said, BS, that's not possible. And in fact, never did come out.
That's next year.
But we did have Scoble on the show. And remember, he said and made a bet with me that Apple would release a clear iPhone
Yes.
at the end of the year.
You should ask him to write you an apology blog.
No, I don't. No. The only bet I have, this is again an example of me not making bets well. I said I'd take him to dinner at the restaurant of his choice. He chose Paris. Thank you, Robert. But I forgot to give him a consequence. So maybe the consequence was
it's his own natural consequence.
his own natural consequence. Something you were covering, I'm sure, Jason, on All About Android. Razer bought NextBit and killed the Robin phone. We liked the Robin phone.
Yeah, the Robin phone was a very interesting and unique phone. I'm not sure it necessarily stood up to the test of time. Ron Richards, of course, had one, and it's the battery started going bad on it pretty quickly, the design of it. Razer kind of coming in, and what we saw later in the years with the Razer phone, kind of co-opted a lot of the design notes, the kind of like boxy, strangely boxy yet sometimes curved design of the Next Bit Robin with the Razer phone. Razer really wanted to have a gaming phone, and so that's kind of what led to that. But I'm not sure any of Robin's kind of cloud management, dynamic cloud management that would make it so that storage on your device was a moot point going forward. I don't think any of that actually.
Good idea, bad implementation.
Yeah.
And in fact, that idea has really been co-opted by progressive web apps.
Yep.
Google talked about it at Google I/O in the spring this year, and now Google and Microsoft both are all in on the idea that you would go to a website on your mobile device. The website would be specially designed to download assets to your phone. The phone would have service workers that could keep the app working even when the phone was offline. The only company that's not all in on this is Apple, ironically. Apple was the first to do a store that was web apps. But now with HTML5, I think I'm bullish on progressive web apps. You write one app, it looks like a website, kind of works like an HTML5 website, but it becomes a mobile app when people visit it, and it's completely cross-platform. One app runs everywhere that HTML5 will run. Yeah. To me, seems very interesting, and I think so. That's, in a way, I want to give Robin credit for the right idea, the wrong implementation, perhaps.
I completely agree.
And, of course, Razer resurrected it in a way. They bought Ouya, they bought NextBit, and they end up making
remember Ouya,
the Android game machine.
Ouya.
And the designers from those two companies went on to make the Razer phone, which came out late in the year. Congress did us a favor.
A solid.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Now we're even. Congress did us a solid by saying, no, email that's older than 6 months still needs a search warrant. Can you believe until February of this year that anybody could look at your email because 6 months old was deemed abandoned?
That was the CSA. Yeah.
Abandoned. But they overturned that, thank goodness. And you know why Congress, the only reason Congress does something like that is because they realized their old email would also be vulnerable. And they said, we better protect that. It wasn't for us. PewDiePie did his Nazi videos.
Was that February?
It was in February.
Dang, some parts of this year seem like it was just yesterday.
I know. YouTube dumped him from their their high-end ad network, which ended up costing him about 15-20% of his revenue. He's still in the top 10 at the end of the year.
And he still has not learned because he's had, 2 videos since then where he basically did the same thing.
He realized it's actually good for numbers, maybe bad for revenue.
Once you've built your business plan on causing outrage and scandal, it's very hard to move away from that.
This was many ways the year of outrage and scandal, actually. If you're going to categorize the year.
If there was a year where outrage and scandal would thrive, that would probably be the title of 2017.
Is monetized outrage and monetized scandal. That was a very strange combination. It's like, I'm going to do this because it's going to make you angry and it's going to make me millions of dollars.
Yeah, although YouTube did kind of come around and reckon with that in the past, the last, I would say, half of the year, kind of change a lot of their policies around what of their content they would allow ads to appear in front of. And part of that actually, I feel like, goes directly back to everything that happened with PewDiePie.
Yeah.
That was the moment
where
I think as a parent, that was the moment where I realized, PewDiePie is known by very, very many kids, but I don't watch all of his videos. And he's just one example, like how, what is the filter here other than me watching every second of everything that my kids watch? Maybe we need to be careful with this YouTube thing, at least be more aware of what's happening.
Now, of course, late in the year, in the fall, we learned about these weird programmatically created kids videos on YouTube using keywords to automatically generate animated shorts that in many ways would be horrific, but the kids would see because it was even on YouTube Kids because the algorithm would offer it as the next video. Yeah. And the kid just mashes, nonverbal kids under 2 would mash it and see the next video.
Yeah, because it's all built around a screenshot. It's all built around that thumbnail, and they all look the same, but they've all got the same characters there, and but very appealing.
Nightmare material.
That was just the natural progression from what we had seen on the platform in 2015 through 2017.
It was people gaming.
Exactly. That's how PewDiePie built up his empire.
Yeah.
He would pick a germane topic or two and built something that was kind of maybe loosely associated with it, then he would get that traffic in addition to his regular customers. Well, okay, why don't we just skip the content side, and now I'm just going to game the search optimization and the screenshot, and I will count on the fact that the people who are watching this aren't developed enough to actually know that this is not what they want. Because it's a kid with a tablet that's auto-playing to the next video and the next video and the next video. And it worked.
This was the first year, and I predict next year, 2018, will be a big year for us seeing the failure of programmatic in general. Recommendation engines, programmatic ad sales. Of course, Russia used rubles famously to buy ads on Facebook. Nobody's paying attention. It's all automatic. These programmatic videos on YouTube. People started to wake up that the algorithm isn't your friend necessarily and can allow some really bad behavior.
And it comes back to the bottom line of these companies. Like they claim to have humans curating this, but they don't. I mean, not even in YouTube Kids, which they're selling to kids. Like you're right, the algorithm is failing us and they need to hire people.
Well, both YouTube and Facebook said, we're going to hire 10,000 more people. I don't think that's enough. I don't think you're going to.
That's a drop in the bucket.
And you nailed it. It's their business model. They can't really abandon it. There's not enough humans in the world to make it really human moderated. Even the App Store, even Apple has kind of acknowledged towards the end of the year, they said no more templated apps. That's an acknowledgement that our human review process is not good enough. That we can't catch the bad apps, so we're going to have to make rules that block a lot of good apps in order to block some bad apps.
Right. Like no one, like Susan Wojcicki at YouTube didn't go into this saying like, hey, let's figure out how to monetize really, nightmarish videos and sell them to kids. But they did say we can do this because we're going to use the algorithm and we're going to depend on the technology and we're not going to really think about how, given the opportunity, there will be people that will do the worst thing possible with the technology.
Right.
But now here they are, and what are they going to do?
But see, not too long ago, even at this table with guests we've had here who are very good at what they do, they all agreed, hey, we trust the algorithm more than we trust people. That was the tagline, right? I mean, The algorithm, it's cold, it's calculating. Maybe you tweak it a little bit, but the algorithm is always going to give us more unbiased results.
Google's a big
person.
believer in that.
Google's a huge believer in it. And this is the year where we started realizing, hey, you know what, that algorithm, it's only unbiased as long as people don't figure out how to game it. And unfortunately, we've gotten very good at gaming it.
Kevin Rose learned that on Dig years ago, and it killed the business. But we still, I think there's a reason we don't learn that lesson. And PS Chops in our chat room said, you can't abandon the algorithm. It's the only way you can handle it at scale.
That
you
is
have
true.
2 billion users on Facebook. I remember the phone company at the turn of the century, last century, the phone company used human operators. And at one point, somebody at AT&T said, if we can continue to grow at this rate, all the women in the world will be employed as operators by the year 1950. So they had to solve it. They came up with electronic switching. But I think we have the same situation now, and I don't know if there's a better way. Maybe I think the problem is Google and other technologies always think, but we can make the algorithm better.
Well, yeah, that's at the core of what they do as a company, right? We know that we have the money to basically hire the very best, smartest thinkers in technology, and those thinkers build things that make it easier for us to make money. They're smart enough to think about all these things. There always seems to be a little way around it. And there's also the myth that algorithms in and of themselves aren't biased because, well, quite frankly, they're built by humans. So there is a certain level of bias built into them inherently.
Remember in March, Microsoft released a Twitter bot called Tay.
That was this year.
Last
Okay.
year. No, that was last year.
That was last year, I think.
Tay was last year.
Oh,
But still, it's worth remembering.
But then
Racist little bots.
Tay was taught to be racist by the Twitter in about a day. You're right. That was 2016. There was Zoe this year. Zoe, kind of same thing. Zoe the bot was a little weird too. I think that maybe we haven't learned that lesson. We should have learned it in 2016. You're right. It was you have a good memory. How did you know Tay was last year?
I don't know.
Wow.
It must be the Blue Bottle coffee. Just kidding.
Thank you, Blue Bottle.
I think I think when you scale is the key there. I mean, I was
Scale.
talking to Jason Snell yesterday on one of his podcasts, and he was talking about every problem that that Facebook is running into. He saw in his tiny community, his online community that he created, in 1999 or 2000. These are and Kevin saw it too in Dig. We all saw this. You saw it too at Leoville. You see when communities can fail in certain ways, but they're just once they get to a certain size.
Yeah.
And so why is it that that's what I think we're a good example of this. We're a good size. I like
Yeah, I don't
how
wanna get
big
bigger.
we are.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't listen to us. Do listen to us,
No,
subscribe.
but those of you who are here, stay here, but don't tell anybody else. Keep it to yourself.
only tell the nice people.
Yeah. No, but there's a real problem with communities, and they can scale. Our chat room scales, but only with a huge human effort. And we have 10 or 15 moderators. There's a lot of work. When we've tried forums, when we've tried comments, we had our own Twitter for a while, the Twit Army. And unless there's all that human intervention, no computer can do it. You got to have a human involved, and that's expensive and hard, especially at the size that YouTube and Twitter and Facebook are at. Yeah. March brought us some big stuff, though. Maybe the product of the year. Time Magazine thought it was the product of the year. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We're not even through the first quarter. Guys, you got to do it. No, it's my fault. I'm slowing you down. Let's talk about Rocket Mortgage. This has been a good year for us with Rocket Mortgage, one of our best sponsors through the year. They're back in 2018, I'm very happy to say, and I'm very happy to do their ads because Rocket Mortgage is something for us, the geek. You probably are familiar with the Quicken Loans, partly because Cleveland, Quicken Loans Arena? And, of course, they're revitalizing the downtown Detroit. They're the number 2 lender in the country, $92 billion in loans last year for home loans. They're actually the best lender in the country because the number one, I don't have to tell you, is a big bank and is not good because that's who I got my loan from when Lisa and I bought our house almost 4 years ago. We went to the big bank, and it was the strangest. It was straight out of Dickens. There's a guy there. The only thing he's lacking is the green eye shade and the sleeve garters and a quill pen. But in many respects, the loan process hadn't changed since he had a sheaf of papers. I guess they printed us out daily with all the loans and the loan rates. He was licking his finger, thumbing through them, and then he was very proud of his loan calculator, his mortgage calculator. He'd say, "Well, here's a rate," and he'd go, and he'd enter the down payment. Here's the rate. This would be your monthly payment. And he holds it up very proudly. Look, I figured this out, and it took a long time. We finally said, "Okay, we'll take that loan." Then the pain began. We go home. We have to start sending them documents. They wanted more. Send them more. A month later, we're still sending them more. The guy we're buying the house from says, guys, it's been a month. I'm going to sell it to somebody else. We're saying, no, it's almost over. The big bank's going to give us a loan. I promise you. We went on vacation. We're faxing stuff from a cruise ship. Debbie, Lisa's sister's faxes stuff from here. It was nuts. We finally got the loan, got the house. Happy ending. I could tell you next time, it will not be that big bank. It will be Quicken Loans and a product they made for us, Rocket Mortgage. Completely online, mortgage approval, completely online. You don't have to go get dressed to go to the bank. You can do it on your phone. You could do it. It's so fast and easy from the open house. You can go to an open house, say, I like this house. I like it. Let's buy it, honey. Well, we got to get the loan. Okay, watch. You whip out your phone. You go to rocketmortgage.com/twit2. You answer a few easy questions you already know the answer to, right? Birthday, address, social. They have partnerships with all the banks, so you don't have to get your bank statements or anything. They get it all from the banks, of course, with your permission, completely securely. They crunch the numbers, and then they come up with the right loan for you based on income, assets, and credit. They will get, within minutes, they will say, you're approved. There's a green button. Download the approval letter. You can print it out, or you can just hold it up and show the realtor. We're approved. We got the loan. Can we buy this house? We'd like to make an offer. Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. Apply simply. Understand every step of the way. Understand fully, and then mortgage confidently. For refis, too, interest rates just went up, and the Fed says they're going to raise them 3 more times in 2018. Now's the time to refi and get those low rates locked in. Rocketmortgage.com/twit2. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org, number 3030. Rocketmortgage.com/twit2. You could, actually go there and start the process And then you'll be ready when you find the house you like. RocketMortgage.com/twit2. We're taking a look at the year in review, as we do every year at the end of the year, with our Twit hosts, Father Robert Ballasare, the digital Jesuit. It's great to have you. That hat, you'd look better in a mitre.
I think I'm going to take this hat to the Vatican.
You need a mitre.
There are a lot of funny hats, so
it'd fit right in. He's a host of This Week in Enterprise Tech, Twiat, we call it, and Know How. Done a great job with both of those. And he's on the Twitter and by the way, great to follow him on the Twitter. Even when, I have to say, I admire you. One of the things Robert did this year is he did was it a month of silence?
Oh, it's 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah.
And it's part of the process of a Jesuit. They have a name for it. What's it called?
We call it tertianship.
Tertianship. And he still tweeted.
Well, Padre Bot tweeted.
The bot tweeted for you.
Yeah.
I thought that was great foresight.
I went back to the logs, and the bot didn't always guess right. Some of those responses were pretty bad. But, yeah.
See, we're algorithmic tweeting. Not a good idea. Follow him on the Twitter at PadreSJ. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting year to follow Robert on Twitter. Also with us, Megan Maroney. She is the host of iOS Today and This Tech News Weekly, our brand new show. We launched that this year. Our weekly news show, we decided daily was too much. Weekly was just right. And I have to say, the audience seems to agree. We have newsmakers and newsbreakers every Thursday with this guy named Jason Howell. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Host of All About Android and Tech News Weekly, the guy with the funny sweater. Yeah.
It's time to...
Yeah.
Time to
have it go over the
latter
left.
Half of this? No, actually,
Yeah.
we're in like the
No,
quarter
we're not
of the
even
show.
close.
Have we gotten to April yet?
Okay, quickly. March. Nintendo Switch released. Product of the year.
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty close.
This is a really big year for Nintendo, right? I
Super
feel
Mario Run came out on iOS, made them a ton of money.
Maybe there was more. There was more pre Super Mario Run than
They
I
were a
feel
little
like there was
disappointed.
post
Yeah, they were a little
Super Mario
disappointed.
Run.
Didn't sell quite as well.
Yeah.
Snap went public. Snapchat. Stock price surged
that working out for
44% on the first day of trading. But this was also the year that Facebook said, we're going to kill that Snap by putting all of Snap's features in WhatsApp and Facebook.
And Instagram.
And Instagram, yeah.
And Instagram.
The big year for Instagram, out Snapchatting Snapchat.
Yeah. Instagram stories became, I think the younger people probably still use Snap.
They
Maybe?
do.
They do.
Yeah.
You have teenagers.
I do. I mean, it's still the best place to hide your stuff.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if it's still active. I think we do. Anthony Nielsen made a hysterical elf on the shelf of me swinging my legs. It's one of the new Snap augmented reality filters. And I tweeted it last week, and you can go into my Twitter stream.
Well, he has to keep making them because they expire in 24 hours.
Oh, you mean it doesn't, I said that, but I thought that was for me personally. It expires for everybody in 24 hours?
Oh, no, that's a good
I don't
point.
know. See, no one understands how
Not sure how
Snap
it
works.
works.
By the way, this was also the year Snapchat said, we're going to rewrite Snapchat so you know how to use it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing. I think part of the reason that it was successful is because only teens knew how to use
I
it.
think they felt like they needed to do something because, I mean, they went public and everybody, the expectation was high that Snapchat, was going public at the right time for them.
You can't hit
And
those
it's-
growth numbers forever.
Man, it really just began to tank almost immediately.
Let's look at
I don't know
the.
if that was more attributed to Snapchat doing things wrong with their service and their app, or if that was more attributed to the success of competitors aping those features and doing it better.
We
They had
wanted
on
a
their
successful
users.
unicorn. We've had a bad year for IPOs.
Not a good year for unicorns.
Yeah.
That might be the theme of the year. Bad year for unicorns. Snap jumped 44% on its first day of trading, and it's never been that high since. In fact, it's just been down.
We did have a Catholic school in the Bay Area that had a VC.
They
on
made
its
a
board.
ton of money.
Did they sell their stock?
I told them to.
And did they?
They did not. I mean, it's still for a $15,000 investment. It's still worth a couple of millions, but it wasn't worth as many of the millions as it was.
We
at the
covered that
IPO.
story. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Raspberry Pi Zero came out. Very hard to get. You covered this $10 Raspberry Pi.
Ours broke.
Did it?
It did. It broke on the show.
Oh, man.
So it was working right before we demoed it on new screensavers, and halfway through the demo, it just said, "Hey, you know what? I'm tired."
What do you want for $10?
Don't call me zero for nothing.
So it was one of those. Well, it would be doing this right now.
Gotta love it when it works.
Also in March, Amazon won 3 Oscars. Manchester
Yes.
by the Sea. So that was big because it was the first time a company, a tech company, and a streaming service won Oscars. It will not be the last time.
No way.
No way.
And actually, that's a trend that you can take all the way back to now with Disney buying up all these different studios. Now they own Fox. It's this idea that if you're going to be a successful streaming provider, you got to start thinking your own content, because you cannot assume that those studios are going to sell their content to you anymore. Disney is definitely not, because they're going to start up their own streaming. So for Netflix and Amazon, it's absolutely vital that they put out the money now so that they own content that people will keep coming back to. Netflix has House of Cards. Amazon has things like Mozart in the Jungle, Stranger Things over on the Netflix side. So we'll see more and more of that. I think that was really the start of it. It's like, yes, this validates the idea. The studio doesn't just make stuff that we can stream. It makes stuff that people want and that they'll reward.
I've noticed that when I watch Netflix these days, most of the time it's an original. It's not a movie.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what they want to push.
Yeah.
That's their money. They make their money when you watch that, not when you watch the latest blah blah blah.
Well, and they
from
can't
Blah
get
Studio.
the latest blah blah blah
Yeah,
right.
in many cases. So that's this was also the year of the breach. I feel like we were so innocent in March. Yahoo announces 32 million accounts were hacked.
That sounded like so,
Sounded like so many.
32 million. Did you say million?
With an M. This was while Yahoo was in negotiation for sale, remember? Marissa Mayer was still running the joint, and Verizon, who was eventually to buy it, wanted a discount when they heard about that. Wait till they hear about 1 billion accounts.
I actually, they just re-released that, and they said there are 32 million Yahoo accounts that haven't been hacked.
I think actually now it's every Yahoo account has been hacked. Let's see. WikiLeaks began the year with the revealing of the CIA, with the reveal of CIA hacking tools. This was the Vault 7 hack. That was in March. I think it was the following month that the NSA tools were released, the Shadow Brokers release. And, of course, that ended up being the source for the WannaCry ransomware the next month. Well, I guess we can jump ahead. Well, let's go back to March just real briefly. The Turkish crime family, remember them? They demanded a ransom from Apple because they said, we have ways to get into the Apple iCloud, and Apple just ignored them and nothing happened. So nice job, Turkish crime family.
that.
And then there was the other one that they hacked, the Netflix, right? Demanded, they said, we've got all but the last episode of Orange is the New Black. Netflix said, hey, thanks for the promotion.
Yeah, exactly. Netflix, like, we just release all of that at the same time anyways, right? So, okay.
Probably no one's going to cancel the Netflix service because they got almost the whole season. of
Yeah,
Orange
you want
is
the
New
last
Black.
one. You want the last one. April
When
was...
March,
Go
Palmer
ahead.
Luckey left Oculus.
Oh, that's right. Palmer Luckey left under a dark cloud. And why did he leave again? Do you remember? Was it Me Too or was it... No, it was politics.
Well, he didn't leave right when that was revealed, but it was revealed that he had paid a company to do memes, like just funny memes, mostly anti-Hillary Clinton memes.
Yeah.
And he just said he did it for the lulz. But then it was later that he left and basically, just left. He said he left under his own... He wasn't kicked out.
Yeah.
And neither did, but they didn't speak about it much. I mean, they were hiding him for a while.
Yeah, he was
I
really
think.
MIA
Like, he
for
wasn't-
quite a while.
And then he allegedly invested later in the VR company that was going to go under and then didn't go under. We spoke to them.
Oh, what was that? It was the VR community.
Not
where,
the magic.
no.
Oh, yeah. But yeah. And then they got sold.
where you could all meet.
They went out of business and they came back
right.
after they got acquired. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah. They were going to be on the new screensavers.
VR or something, yes.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know that was a Palmer Luckey investment.
Well, that was allegedly, like they had some investments, but I think it was originally him, but they didn't want to say because we talked
Yeah,
to the
he
woman.
was public on Twitter about the company, and then very soon after they got this huge influx of money that survived, that brought them back to life. And if you connected the dots between the time that he tweeted those comments and when everything happened and a few other clues, it pointed pretty strongly at the fact that Palmer Luckey was involved in that in some way, shape, or form. But I don't know if we ever found out for certain if that was actually the case.
Yeah, they wouldn't tell us that when we spoke to them.
And of course, a Palmer Luckey-like character was mercilessly skewed on the TV show Silicon Valley. It was quite enjoyable as well. So this was also April, the month that Kendall Jenner gave a Pepsi to the police during the protest. Now, remember, we've already forgotten this. This was the year of outrage, and this was one of the big outrages, was this Pepsi, this kind of tone-deaf Pepsi ad where it was a protest, kind of a non-specific protest inviting you all to join the conversation about whatever, and there were Muslim people drinking Pepsi, and there was a model in taking pictures, and there was Kendall Jenner, and she was the model, and then she decided to join the conversation, and there's peace, love, and
this was the source of one of my favorite SNL spoofs of the year.
Oh, you want to see that?
That one was incredible.
You've
got the guy, he's describing his vision, and he's like,
It's funny because this was an SNL piece that you really wouldn't get if you didn't remember. In other words, it won't be shown ever, again, because nobody remembers the Kendall Jenner. This is the Saturday Night Live.
How's it going, Mr. Director?
Good. I'm really excited.
Oh, you should be writing and directing a commercial for Pepsi. Doesn't get much bigger than that.
Oh, hey, this is my sister. I got to get this real quick. Carrie, hey. Sorry, I can't super talk right now. I'm on the set of this huge Pepsi commercial I'm doing. I know,
this really
right?
probably was
completely my idea. And
among many great moments for Saturday Night Live this year. This was my favorite.
SNL.
This has been a big year for SNL.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So there's this huge protest in the street, reminiscent of Black Lives Matter, and so everybody's marching, right? And they get to these police officers, and you think it's gonna go bad because there's kind of like a standoff, and then Kendall Jenner walks in, and she walks up to one of the police officers, and she hands him a Pepsi, and then that Pepsi brings everybody together. I mean, isn't that like the best ad ever?
No, it's not. No. Not the best ad ever. No.
It gets worse.
You watch the whole thing because it really is a great spoof.
It's really well done.
I missed this.
Which will not age well because this is one of the funny things about outrage.
It moves fast.
It moves. There's always something new to be outraged by. Yeah. Apple began to open Apple Park in April as well, though it took them another 8 months before they really kind of got it open. We had new emojis in April, 69 new emojis.
Probably the story of the year.
Yeah, 2017 was big for emoji.
It was the year of the emoji.
Which new ones were we excited about? I don't even remember anymore.
Broccoli?
Broccoli?
Broccoli? Come on.
Yeah.
Tacos,
eventually
pizza, hot dogs
with the cheese on top.
Cheeseburger, they fixed that eventually.
None of these things.
Actually, Google did fix that. They also made the beer go all the way to the foam. That
Which makes sense.
Thank God.
Logically.
Thank God for technology.
Right.
Yeah. It was also, remember the Burger King ad that intentionally triggered Amazon's Echo?
Oh, yeah.
And in order to make that work, they had to modify.
It was Google Home. It wasn't Echo.
Oh, sorry, Google Home. And they had to modify the Wikipedia page that Google Home would refer to. And it worked until Wikipedia fixed it and Google fixed it. But they sure got a lot. It was
I forget, was that before or after the South Park episode where they basically did the same thing? They went after all the voice assistants.
What did come first? I have to imagine that the South Park... Well, I would normally give them credit for coming first on something like that, but I think that followed the Burger King.
That segment was actually kind of brilliant. I don't follow South Park anymore, but that was one of those. They're
very. I don't like it, but they're very good with the timely social commentary.
Yes,
and when they do it quite well. Yeah,
absolutely. It wasn't a trend. We didn't really see it beyond that, right? Like,
nobody did it again. That was the end of that.
People realized that's also a really good way to tick off your audience. Yeah. So maybe you can do it once because it's funny, and then leave it alone.
Ticked off Google and Wikipedia.
Yeah, I mean they made the change almost immediately, so that's probably why nobody wanted to do it.
You know what didn't happen again? United dragging a passenger off an airplane. That happened in April.
Yeah, that's just really good for your PR, by the way.
But that's an example of how technology has changed the landscape, changed the conversation, because it was two or three people with camera phones not only recorded it but then tweeted it, and at United the outrage and immediately changed United's policies, changed airlines' policies, and rightly so. The poor guy, whatever resistance he was putting up, he ended up getting beat up pretty bad by the airport police.
And that's the new normal. You just assume
is.
that there will be a video
There
of
is a
whatever
camera
you're doing
in your face
at
no matter.
some point.
Well, everybody has them in their pocket.
Will that
at
make
all
people
times, and they're almost like
behave?
on guard for looking, for keeping an eye out on things that are snappable or whatever.
Will it make people behave better?
I don't think it's going to change
think
human
so.
behavior in that way.
We knew this would happen a few years ago. Remember, it was a big problem in schools that, every fight, every confrontation, somebody would post it on Facebook. And it was starting even a few years ago to be a concern for teenagers that, there might be a video living on after your high school years of you behaving badly.
Well, I think that's why Snapchat happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's a
I
good
think,
point.
but I mean, I think it's the worst for that because it makes you believe things are going to disappear, but anyone can screenshot it. So it's really like a recipe for disaster, I think, because you live under the idea that this is going to disappear. I'm not, putting it up on Instagram where it's going to stay there, but then, so you do all these crazy things that someone is inevitably going to Snapchat and then share, and it will live on.
Yeah. I'm with you, Megan, in saying that it's not going to change human behavior, but it won't change human behavior during the event. Because people get mad and they do stupid
Impulse.
things. That's
It's
human
your
nature.
impulse.
The last thing they think at that moment is, but there's going to be 5 cameras. pointed at
Precisely.
me.
But it will change human behavior after an event. Because after an event, you have to think, someone might have video of that. So I better do a really good job of recalling exactly what happened and get my story as close to the truth as possible. Because that's how you lose something like that, right? You put out a statement and then the video evidence contradicts it entirely. So that part of human behavior has to catch up. I will still do stupid things because I am a human and I get upset and I do things I wouldn't otherwise do. But now I have to be clear enough to say, okay, well, assuming someone has a video of it, I better make sure I don't put out a story that is so easily contradicted. So in other words, learn to lie better.
Well, this was also the month, April, that a murder was live streamed on Facebook.
Yeah.
And that was pretty horrific.
But I mean, yeah, horrific. But we kind of knew something like that was going to happen
Eventually.
right?
And it hasn't
the
happened
tech is there.
since, or has it?
That we know of.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
They
there's a
already
whole lot of
live-streamed a suicide.
yeah. There's a lot of self-reporting.
I think it's not
Facebook
the end of that, is it?
has gotten maybe better on moderating that stuff. But in general, the live streaming, and I realize 2017 wasn't the year where live streaming from your pocket began, but it certainly was the year where we realized it wasn't nearly as big of a deal as a lot of people were making it out to be when it did begin.
Yeah.
It seemed to kind of fade away throughout the year,
We won a Webby in April.
We did.
Yeah.
That should have been at the top.
And, and by the way, we counted this up the other night at the Christmas party. We have 5 Emmys in the studio.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
between you, Karsten, Jerry,
Anthony,
and Victor.
We've got a talented crew here.
dang,
Yeah, very nice.
you get some Emmys.
I know. What are we doing wrong?
So I already mentioned it, but Netflix was hacked in April, and it was by the Dark Overlord. And Ashley, did we put that in the best of? I hope we did. Ashley Esquetha skewering Dark
Yeah,
Overlord.
Making the voice of the,
Watch that next week, because that was definitely... And, I was kind of nervous. You don't want to mock hackers too publicly.
Yeah.
I thought, I hope nothing bad happens. But nothing bad happened.
Like, that was her. It wasn't me. She did it.
It was she was brave, and she was right. Nothing bad.
Yeah, and she just met Mark Hamill at the Star Wars premiere, so
Did she?
nothing bad will happen to her from now on.
I do want to say, for a moment, I thought Mark Hamill was the dude.
Well, I think they were trying hard to push that. Say,
That
he's
lightsaber
gonna
really
flip.
held the room together, man. I don't know. I don't know why. There's some funny moments. It's actually got some comedy. You haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it yet.
No.
It actually has some comedy.
I will probably watch it when it comes out on Blu-ray.
Don't get the 3D version.
Playing the
just
long
my
game.
advice.
I
My
played the
advice.
long game. Also, I've said this before. I'm kind of spoiler-proof. I really don't care how the movie pans out. I just like to enjoy it.
Yeah, just enjoy it.
No,
Yeah.
Right?
I care a lot.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah,
So, like, if someone tells you, I'm not going to do it. If someone tells you how it ends, it
I would punch
spoil
them
the
in the
experience.
face.
Wow. Don't tell her anything.
Oh, and I get that.
I'll
I
have
know
a
a lot
camera
of people like that.
in my pocket.
But like, I'm one of these people. I will like go to the Wikipedia entry and just say, "Oh, okay, that's how it goes."
No.
And that changes the experience for me none whatsoever.
You know what I like to do, and you can't really do this with Star Wars. I like to read the book before I go see the movie.
I'm cool.
And that will spoil it. Something's going to spoil it. I'd rather the book spoils the movie than the movie spoils
The Martian
book.
was one of my favorite books of that year, and I love the movie.
Yeah.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
I don't. That's not a spoiler to me because I want to see how they do it. Like
Well,
if you
see, yeah,
tell me
that's-
if they
yeah.
change the ending or not, then I would be upset at you.
Well, see, that's how I feel about pretty much everything. Like
In
if
this
I read
case,
the entry, I know how it ends, but I want to see how you get
Star
there.
Wars is so plot-driven and twist-driven that I think that it's legitimate to say, I don't want to know anything about it.
And I understand that.
Although I don't think... Well, I shouldn't say it.
You're the worst.
No. That means don't say it.
I realize like you've spoiled a lot of things, and I've never punched you in the face, but
Wait, what? Oh.
I'm not gonna punch you.
Hold on.
Hold my hands down, Jason.
Okay, and go. I will say this: Stacey Higginbotham this year has promised, and you've agreed to build into the, because she's never in studio, rarely in studio, build into the monitor a remotely triggered boxing glove that will, when she feels like it, come out and punch me in the face.
She's going to have a big red button.
You're welcome to use that.
Okay, thank you. I'll get with Stacey on that.
I had
She's
to
probably got a
redesign
Gantt
it, though.
chart on the progress.
Yes, this was the year Stacey Higginbotham made a Gantt chart for her Thanksgiving preparations. Yeah, we were very impressed.
The first version that I created was pneumatic, and it even had the comic book
that'd knock
boxing
my
glove.
block off.
Yeah, I'm like, no, that's concussion. So I gotta redesign
Pneumatic,
that.
really?
Yeah, it was easy. I had it, so I'm like, oh, you pneumatic tube.
Well, you know, it'd actually be perfect if it would just come within inches.
Right, but the problem is if you're closer,
it
doesn't
actually knocks
have
me out.
How does
It could
it
kind of
know?
spoil
That would be
show.
the end of that show.
Thank you for not doing that. Facebook's F8 was also in April. And it's kind of fun to look at F8 and see what of the Facebook announcements survived the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So Facebook announced its augmented reality camera was going to be part of Facebook, the app. I guess it is.
Kind of.
Yeah,
it's not really a big thing.
Anybody spend any time in Facebook Spaces, the virtual reality? We did a little bit, and it was so horrible we never went back.
I played with it at OC4, and I took the helmet off, and I'm like, no, I'm done with this.
Are you listening to music and playing games in Facebook Messenger?
Oh, yeah.
No.
No.
You could share the latest Chainsmokers song or launch Words with Friends. This was their attempt to kind of keep up with Apple's messages, which does do all of that and much better. And I think Apple users just stick with that.
Yeah, I think Facebook had other concerns that we've already discussed that they were a little more involved in.
They were so, it was a different time for Facebook in April. They were
Yes.
so optimistic, so ebullient.
Yeah.
You're going to want to put a Nike sweatband on your
Right.
buddies.
Nobody knew that they were allowing people to buy ads in order to not sell housing to black people.
Yeah. Yeah, ProPublica did discover that this year. They were able to buy ads that discriminated against Jewish people, black people, a variety of people, even, like janitors. I mean, just weird groups.
Which I feel like is a greater message around the online ad industry in general than it is just about Facebook. I'm not surprised at all to know that you could do that. Obviously, it's great that Facebook is making changes, but part of it is holding Facebook to account for that. I think the bigger part of it is taking a look at the ad industry in general and just realizing like that really falls in line with how that's managed online because it's a data-driven. It's an easy it's an easy world to be able to get very specific with things. Of course, as we've talked about earlier, people can be horrible, and so they will find a way to use that to their advantage and to somebody else's disadvantage. That's a bigger problem than just Facebook.
And I get that, but the thing was with Facebook saying, okay, we're going to start more closely monitoring these things as they're developed, as the data starts creating these categories on which you could buy ads. That seems like that's one of the places where you absolutely would have human interaction because they're not generating that many saleable tags. And the fact that you had saleable tags that were obviously racist and inflammatory, it's like, well, anyone looking over the generated tag should say, no, we probably shouldn't sell ads against that.
Right. I hate Jews.
The point being that Facebook has this data so I suppose Google might have some of this data, but Facebook has a richer trove of data to mine. And the fact that they're willing to sell against it, by the way, ProPublica discovered it earlier in the year. Facebook said, oh, yeah, we'll knock that off. And then in September, ProPublica did it again, and they hadn't knocked it off. So this is another trend with Facebook of them, doing bad stuff, apologizing, but then not stopping, or stopping in a limited fashion. Here's ProPublica's example. This is a screenshot of buying an ad for people who are Jew haters. How about that? And by the way, Facebook says your audience selection is great. Potential audience size 108,000 people.
Oh, jeez.
You can buy that ad. Now,
You can't
Facebook's
anymore.
probably buried that feature.
Yeah, they took out the feature of being able to add your own tags. So people were adding those tags manually.
Last year was that Facebook, ProPublica bought an ad that blocked African Americans,
last year?
Hispanics, and Asian Americans. Facebook said they built a system that prevent it, but, well, now you can buy ads for Jew haters. That's been blocked as well. But I'm sure this is maybe a reflection not on Facebook, but just how possible it is to game systems like this, right?
Well, and that's the thing, because we complain that these systems have been gamed, but that's what advertising is. Advertising is gaming the system. That's the whole point of advertising.
It's gaming your Google Home, to figure out how to get it to fire off for your ad campaign.
How do you go to an advertiser and say, we would like you to stop the gaming of the system in the system that games the system?
Regulations. I mean, that's what TV advertising has been regulated
That's true.
always. I mean, and this has not been regulated. And I think that there's an argument to be made that it should be regulated. I'm not willing to make that argument now, but I mean, I think that there is a way. My dad was in advertising, since the advertising started, and there were all kinds of regulations that they had to, they still figured out ways to game the system.
They sure did, yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I used to think there was a rule you couldn't lie in an advertisement. I guess I was wrong. Well, you couldn't sort of.
You can't say it's the best.
You can't say it's healthy. Right. But you can lie in other ways. And that's the problem. You can't make any regulations sufficiently general to cover all the possible ways to game it. And that's just the fact of the matter in general.
And I do think that this is an advertising-wide problem, but it's interesting to consider the difference between YouTube's targeted advertising and Facebook's targeted advertising, because Facebook is dealing with our social graph. It's all the people that we know and all the people we communicate with, and that's different than what YouTube is dealing with. And we're also handing over that information to Facebook.
We're willingly doing it, and that's one of the reasons lately, as we get towards the end of the year, I've become more and more vociferous about getting off Facebook. I'm starting to really come to the opinion that Facebook is malign.
I don't do Facebook.
That Facebook is a problem.
I have a Facebook
and you're
account.
giving Facebook so much information. But the thing is, that isn't going to matter because 2 billion people use Facebook.
Yeah.
It's too late.
You've already given them.
They already know everything.
Yeah.
About me. But at least I won't see the Facebook ads if I don't visit Facebook. I keep my account only because I need to, because we cover it. We have to talk about it. The other big story that Facebook kind of reminded me about during the F8 conference is 360-degree video. We were all excited about it. They gave away a 360-degree gyro-optic camera for iPhone. They touted their Facebook camera. The similar camera, was it the Oz? I want to say Osmo. It was the Oz something. $30,000 Nokia 360-degree
that's the one
camera
that Alex uses.
that went out of business. And I'm starting to think that maybe we kind of like 3D video, that we maybe overdid 360. It didn't really, or is it going to persist in some limited way?
It falls into falls into the same category of our kind of view this year of virtual reality, and maybe we're getting more into augmented reality, but how connected are we really to surrounding ourselves with a virtual representation of something?
Right.
Last year, VR seemed like, the next big thing. This year, I wouldn't say that VR was a failure necessarily, but it certainly didn't have the steam that it had last year. It really slowed down. 360-degree video, we thought, well, this is a really great way to pull you into that basketball game when you can't sit courtside. This is how people are going to buy tickets to watch these games, because then they'll be there. But then you realize, in order for that to reach maximum capacity of users, we've all got to be perfectly comfortable with the fact that we each have a headset that we sit on, put on our face, and then we just sit there in a room.
It's just not, I think, long-term comfortable.
It's not practical.
360 and VR fight against one basic truth of all the content that we make, and this is no matter what content industry you're in, and that is there's a narrative. You're trying to tell a narrative. That's why people come to you. You give people a 360-degree technology, and suddenly the narrative doesn't really come through because they can look anywhere they want. I mean, as a director, you control where the cameras are pointed, which camera you're using, what angle you're giving to the audience. Once you put on that 360 set, you're just looking around going, okay, I guess I look over here. Oh, wait, I missed something over. Oh, wait. That you're doing the entire time. It's a fun technology demonstrator. It is a horrible way to actually absorb content.
And it's not really as transformative as I feel like it absolutely needs to be for it to get broad adoption. I think there are a lot of ways that it kind of falls short, and there may be a time when it checks all those boxes and you put it on and you truly feel like you are experiencing something. I don't think we're there yet, and I think that's going to shoot 360-degree video and ultimately VR, at least slow it down.
Well, we covered F8. Now in May, Google I/O, and they announced Lens. Finally got here, finally getting it on cameras, at least on the Pixel phones.
Yeah, we're getting it now, yeah.
They announced Google Pixel Buds, and they showed that great demonstration of translation.
Pixel Buds.
No.
The way you even said that was just full of disgust.
Disgust.
Buds.
But go back to that moment where you're like, wow, that
was
sounds
so
fantastic.
cool.
Yeah, I mean,
This is why keynotes are dangerous, because they're Kool-Aid moments.
Yeah.
You get excited about a demo, and it's really hard not to realize, well, let's see that in real life. And by the time we actually tried using the Pixel Buds just a few months ago when they finally came out, no, it was not even that long ago, last month. It didn't work at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of promises made when you are at a big keynote like that. I've gotten very used to it, going to a lot of Google I/O keynotes over the years, to the point to where now when I go to one and I see all the amazing flashy things that they're showing off on stage, I know inside my head that a certain percentage of these things might never see the light of day, or might actually launch next year and be limited compared to what we're seeing right now, or might actually be great as well. But this was not a good year for Google when it comes to living up to the expectations that were set out at Google I/O. When you're talking, and even beyond, like getting into the hardware aspect of things, which comes a little bit later in the year, but Google had a really hard time with hardware this year.
Remember, they
almost
announced
laughably hard.
the Google Home Mini, and that was the one that journalists got and was listening to them all the time. So they disabled the tap to touch. In fact, it's still disabled in the Mini, but they've got a side squeeze.
Yeah, they've got a side. Yeah, they've redesigned.
We
how
can
it
all
works.
at least agree that the Pixel 2 is incredible, right? I mean, no problems.
You know what?
with that.
Well, okay. I want to say, I'm a Pixel 2 XL user.
I am too, and I love it.
I think this was an example, and we saw a lot of it this year, because there's such pressure to publish, to be the first out with a review. And this was an example of people rushed their Pixel 2 reviews out and overplayed, I think, the problems with the screen. I've been very happy. Google did release an update that lets you to turn on a saturated mode that makes that OLED screen look every bit as good as a Samsung screen. I have no burn-in on this screen. And what people did miss is the very good camera in here that has only gotten better because Google just released Oreo 8.1, Android, the new Android, which it announced at Google I/O, Android O, it talked about. And what they didn't tell us, they still didn't tell us when they finally came out with the phone, people discovered it. I think iFixit maybe when they took the phone apart. There's a separate chip not turned on to support camera processing.
Pixel Visual Core.
It was just turned on with 8.1, and I've been taking pictures with the Pixel. It is way ahead of anything else out there.
It's the best phone. It's the best camera phone on the market.
It is easily the best camera, both for color, HDR. That's what that lens helps with. I'm blown away by the results I'm getting with it. I mean, the detail I'm getting, the color resolution I'm getting, and now they have they've put augmented reality stickers in it, which just came out with 8.1.
AR stickers.
That are very cool.
With AR core.
But I mean, it doesn't do singing poop emojis.
Let me see if I can find the.
There's hope.
I shot one. There. I think, is this the one I shot at the Star Wars preview? Let me see. I shot.
Wait, did you film the movie with your Pixel?
Do you mind? Well, it was. The quality is so good. Actually, there seems to be a problem with Google Photos video. It just spins and spins. Have you had this? I don't know what.
I have.
Eventually, it kicks in. But
maybe it's downloading
Why doesn't
the
it
video.
say what phone you took that with?
You're right. It doesn't.
The other one said Pixel, but maybe it's the video. Won't
yeah,
show.
because it's a video. I think it handles the metadata a little bit differently.
So I'm waiting for the movie to start, and I don't know if you could see it, but there's a BB-8 right in front of me. And the video's not playing, and I was able to put a stormtrooper in the video. These are the virtual reality stickers. They're really effective.
They are.
Oh, that's not a real stormtrooper?
Well, that is, but yeah. The portrait mode is good. I did a comparison of portrait mode with Apple. I think Apple still wins in the portrait mode, but I feel like the color, the HD. This is an HDR shot.
Nice and warm.
You can see it's actually coming alive because it's starting to process. It's processing and turn off the light.
Yeah, if you turn that off, you get the full resolution.
And I think that this is an example of very dark with the tree trunk and very bright with the grass, where HDR just excels.
That looks really
nice. It's natural. It doesn't look weird and painterly, but I think this is so. Credit to Google, I think, and I think this is an example of, and we saw this with the Essential phone also, which came out this year, where early reviewers said, "Oh no, the camera app is terrible," but Essential over time was able to get the camera app better and better. And anybody who stayed with the phone, you have it now.
It's actually gotten quite good.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper too, like for the price that you can buy it now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the problems Essential had. The early reviews were so bad, they were so delayed, they ended up having to cut the price almost in half.
Yeah.
At that price, it's a great buy.
Well, when you first gave it to me, the camera was by far the worst of the camera phones I have in my lab. Now it's probably the best one of the ones that I keep in my lab.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And that's where I think having a review that has to come out the next day is really a problem.
Yeah.
And so I would just say it does a disservice to our viewers and our listeners who are in the market. Wait, listen, and pay attention to the reviewers who come back 2, 3, 4 weeks later, a month later, because you're going to get a different perspective on it. I think I have no hesitation recommending the Pixel 2.
I would completely agree. And I think early on I was a little worried because it really did seem like one after another display issue was called out. I really think the problem, or at least part of the problem for Google this year, was what you're talking about, right? Like they were releasing a lot of hardware. There were reviews that were hitting almost immediately, kind of following Google's really good at doing the and maybe good is the wrong word, doing we'll release our hardware and it's beta until it's not anymore. And the problem with doing that is that the public perception of Google's hardware release category this year is that a number of different pieces of hardware had problems out of the gate. They've addressed almost all of them, I would say. And if you were to start writing reviews from this point in time based on where that hardware is at right now, all of that would be erased and everything would be great. The problem is there's that history that leads up till now that now, it puts a sour taste in your mouth to think like, okay, well, then what's going on with their quality control? How did so many things get through that they then had to fix later?
But that's normal. And
I
feel
suppose
like
it is normal, but why does it
know
affect
it if there
Google more
weren't
than
this
others?
rush to review? And it doesn't just affect Google, it affects other companies as well. And I think what's interesting is companies like Apple are fostering this. So Apple has twice now with the iPhone 10 and most recently with the iMac Pro done short review turnaround times. With the iPhone 10, a number of people only had it for a day, but because there's such pressure to get it out, we're actually reviewing the phone after 1 day of use. Apple, I think, felt like this is good for us because people will focus on the new stuff. They won't focus on battery life and other things they can't test. And they just did it again with the iMac Pro.
Right.
And I feel like that's a disservice. Companies this is talking about gaming. They're gaming the review system. Right. And sometimes to their benefit, sometimes in the case of Essential and Google, to their detriment. So as I think all we can say is to people reading reviews, be more patient. That first rushed review is almost always going to have mistakes in it because you don't know what a phone or any device is like until you've used it for weeks and months.
But be patient for what? Because there aren't like TechCrunch and Engadget aren't coming back 2 months later. I mean,
right.
be
and
patient.
they're all saying the same thing too, right?
Yeah, but they're not. Yeah, they're not going to come back and say, "Hey, I've used this for 3 months. It's
We
my
were
regular
wrong.
phone,
Yeah.
and this is what I like about it." I mean, you're saying that, but not. I mean, not a
So
lot of
watch
people are.
us. I do think, though, that there are a few. I'm starting to see a few sites saying a month in, here's what we think. And I hope that we see more of that because I think that's really much more fair to a product. And people don't rush. I mean, some people rush out day one and buy a product. But you shouldn't necessarily trust those first day reviews. Those are often just not completely accurate about the product. I just want to say that. I don't know what the answer is, but it's really it's because of the pressure to publish and get those clicks. Because you know what? If you're going to publish a review of the Pixel 2 XL, all of the clicks are in the first week. After that, nobody clicks. And so when sites are driven by clicks or views, then they're going to be giving you rushed reports.
Behooves them to get it up soon.
It's
because they can
kind
capitalize on
of another side of the link bait issue, right?
Yep.
Well,
Absolutely.
it's tough because the way that we used to do it here was we would do the unboxing, we would do the first look, and then maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months in, we'd actually do the real review. We use this thing as a daily driver for X number of time. This is what we found. And when we started going back through our numbers, we're like, look, that first look gets a ridiculous amount of clicks, a ridiculous amount of views. No one cares about the review, the full review.
Fortunately, we're not driven so much by that. And it's one of the reasons I have a policy of, in general, buying these products and using them and continuing to use them. So you do that, you do that. We all do that. And I think that a lot of publications can't afford to do that. A lot of individuals, YouTubers and stuff can't afford to do that. But when it's possible, I think that's the right way to do it, is to live with these devices. And so if you watch All About Android, you're going to get a much more nuanced, rich perspective of what's out there and how it works over time than if you just quickly read a review on Engadget and say, oh, I'm going to make my decision. Same thing, iOS Today. You're going to get a much better idea of what you can do with these devices. That's a little self-serving. But
I also feel like I'm not in the business to tell you whether or not you should buy something. Like that's not, I mean, I'm not a professional gadget reviewer. I mean, I like to talk about
we don't say we're reviewers.
Yeah, like
we really
how
don't.
is it changing your life? How can you use it?
How do I use it?
Like, how is it changing the world? How is it changing your family? Like, that's more of it.
That's
I'm
more
not saying, like,
appropriate,
buy or not buy. Like, that's not what I do. So, if you're
well,
looking
it's
for
one of
that-
the reasons we stopped doing Before You Buy. We had a product review show that made that recommendation. And I didn't think we did it as well as people like Marcus Brownlee. If that's what you want those quick video reviews, there are really good people doing that. That's not what we do. We do a little bit different kind of in-depth experience with the devices. Speaking of which, at Google I/O, Microsoft did this year as well. Both announced standalone virtual reality headsets that I can't imagine anybody wants, but they're cheaper than buying an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive. So I don't think the market for Rifts or Vives is that big anyway, but now they're going to get
except for one thing,
toe in that market.
Super hot.
Well, yeah, I mean, super hot supersedes pretty much everything.
Pretty much everything. That's it.
In the world that exists. My own personal preference.
Google also announced Android Go, which finally came out last month at the Google I/O. That was the low-cost version of Android designed for entry-level devices for the rest of the world.
Any hardware that has Oreo that's 1 gig of memory or lower automatically opts for the Android Go installation.
It'll run as little as 512 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, we'll see what that kind of...
sorry, 512 megs. I see this Verge review says again, this has been out since May. 512 gigs of RAM or less.
Oh man!
If I get a phone with 512 gigs,
wow.
as little as 512 gigs.
I think they meant megabytes. Don't you? Yeah, but
probably.
But this is a perfect example. Nobody has come back to look at that.
Yeah.
Nobody edited it in the first place, and nobody's come back to look at it since then. Google did announce the TPU, the processor, the TPU chip designed for artificial intelligence, TensorFlow optimized. I think we're starting to see that. In fact, one of the things that did happen this year, AlphaGo, we mentioned that it beat, early in the year, it beat 50 hardcore Go players. Around about this time, I think it was in May, AlphaGo beat the Go champion. And then a couple of months later, AlphaZero superseded AlphaGo, actually beating it with 1 day of training. And so huge strides have been made in artificial intelligence and machine learning, some of this because of TensorFlow and the TPU processors. And now the new thing is, and we'll see how important this is, every phone that comes out this year, this coming year in 2018, will have some sort of AI hardware built into it. Apple's going to do it. Google's doing it. And I don't know, Qualcomm announced with its Snapdragon 845, no, we're going to have a little AI capability built into that thing.
Well, because AI has been the grand savior of everything in technology this past couple of years.
This was the year of AI, wasn't it?
Google I/O, if there was one keyword to pin on it, it was artificial intelligence. Everything about that presentation earlier this year was either about Assistant or about moving AI onto the device so that you don't have to do all this stuff in the cloud, making everything smarter. The world of technology is better for AI, and I guess that remains to be seen whether that's actually true.
And don't forget all the other names for AI. In case you don't want to call it AI because it has a little sci-fi feel to it, you could also call it machine learning or neural networking or deep learning. So those are other buzzwords you can toss in there.
When you're not sure, just use all four in the same sentence.
Two massive trends in 2017. One trivial, one very serious. Fidget spinners.
Very
That's the serious one.
Serious one. The big deal.
Is it over or is it still? I think it's not over.
Yeah, I think it got resurrected a bit with the fidget cube, and then now we're done.
Are we done with fidget spinners? Will this not be the Christmas? You tell us, folks.
so.
Christmas Eve. How many of you have fidget spinners in the stockings up on the chimney tonight?
I mean, actually, I would imagine a lot of people probably do because they're so inexpensive.
They're cheap.
They're like $3, you know, and they fit into a stocking pretty easily.
You can always tell when it's about to die because whatever it is that's trending has become the giveaway at any of the tech things.
Yes, that's a really good
When
point.
everyone starts having, come get the fidget spinner, and you're just looking at them like, I hate you.
I have 20 now.
I think it probably reached its peak when Google built a fidget spinner into Google search.
Yep.
That you don't need to buy a fidget spinner now. You can just spin it on the screen.
We
And
did a know-how as a gag right before I left for tertianship. We did a fidget spinner episode, and it was one of the most downloaded episodes.
Okay,
I was like,
I rest my
no, stop.
Okay, that was the light one. The very serious one was, and this was the other shoe dropping after the shadow brokers released the NSA trove of exploits. And by the way, there were more NSA breaches later in the year. This was the year of NSA exploit.
Yeah.
WannaCry, which was a very malicious ransomware that took, among other things, took advantage of some of those NSA exploits to spread from machine to machine, was simply the worst case of ransomware to date, right?
Oh, by far, by far. And the fact that it was so effective at hitting installed bases at institutions that could not afford to go down, like hospitals and educational institutions, that's what made it even worse. I mean, you're talking about not just ransomwaring computers, you're talking about ransomwaring entire networks. And yeah,
Merck, the pharmaceutical company, took a $300 million loss on its quarterly results because of WannaCry.
It hit Ford. I mean,
Ford everywhere. It hurt Maersk, the container ship company. Their container ports were shut down for days because of this malware. I mean, if there's an upside, at least people are probably taking this kind of thing more seriously. We haven't seen anything near those.
But as you alluded to, the big story was the fact that we've got
NSA.
government entities sitting on 0 days.
Thank you, NSA.
Yeah, right.
And it's long been hinted at. We kind of knew they were probably doing something like that. But the fact that not only are they sitting on 0 days, but they've obviously weaponized 0 days. That's one of these things where it's like, oh, well, we're doing a really crappy job of identifying 0 days then.
Of course, the irony of it is the WannaCry hackers who took Bitcoin probably sold the Bitcoin. If they'd only kept it.
I know.
This was the year Bitcoin hit $20,000.
Or 4,000 by the end of this episode. We don't know.
Yes, we really don't know. And that's about the swing that happens with Bitcoin.
And for
at
me
this
and
point.
Steve Gibson and many others, this was the year of the missing Bitcoin wallet. Where is that wallet? I got to find that wallet. What's the password? I have a $100,000 Bitcoin wallet lying around somewhere. Steve Gibson, though, beat me. He's got 50 Bitcoin in a wallet worth as much as $1 million earlier this year. But I asked him the other day on his show Security Now. He said, well, I don't know if I lost it. I built a Bitcoin miner. It overnight mined 50 Bitcoin. This is a few years ago when you could do that. You can't do that anymore. And then I think the computer wouldn't start because the hard drive died. He's the guy who created SpinRite.
Yeah,
okay?
only if there was some software to get that drive back.
And so, but I haven't messed with it since. It's just sitting in the corner there. So I think he's still got the wallet.
Tell him to send it to us, and we'll fix it
for a 10% cut. That's all.
Actually, I've got you both beat. I've got 1.2 million
Bitcoin,
Dogecoin.
Yeah, Dogecoin.
They're not all the same, Padre. Do I have to tell you this?
Wait a minute. What is it? Coinbase, Coin Marketplace. Yeah, coinmarketcap.com. These are all the different cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin currently $17,900 as we record this. Has kind of gone up and down as has been a little profit taking. Its market cap, though, interesting, $299 billion. 16 million Bitcoin out there. Then there's Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, the fork is doing pretty well. Litecoin, IOTA, Dash. Keep going. Bitcoin Gold's in 10th. Monero. That's the one. That was a big trend. The websites mining coin on your computer using JavaScript, thanks to CoinHive. They were looking for Monero, $312. Populous, BitConnect, Waves. I'm still looking at Dogecoin. I'm sure it's somewhere. There's a lot of cryptocurrencies.
There we go.
There's Dogecoin, number 39 on the list. It's worth not a lot. $0.00326.
I've got a couple of $1,000 in Dogecoin.
It's a third of a cent each.
That's not.
And you have how many?
1.2 million.
Oh, you got some money.
I got money.
Sell that off, make the difference, and get yourself a Bitcoin.
But the thing is, I would have to reinstall a wallet. I've got the file, but
that's what I did. I had my wallet that.
The ledger is 29 gigabytes, so it will take a long.
Do you know what the ledger
time.
is for Bitcoin? The blockchain is 150 gigabytes.
No.
So in order to find out what was in my wallet .dat, which is a 1K file, I had to install Bitcoin. I used Bitcoin Core to create it, so I thought, well, I'll stick with Bitcoin Core, install it, and run it a day to download the 150 gigabytes of blockchain. Now I have it. I'll keep it up to date.
I think I'm realizing that Bitcoin is like the modern day, I have a gift card and I never used it. So it's like I have a wallet with Bitcoin. I don't know the password. How much money is lost because of that scenario?
Of the top 100 cryptocurrencies, only Bitcoin is worth less than Dogecoin.
Yes, but Bitcoin never had a NASCAR with its logo on it. So
Dogecoin had a NASCAR?
We had many fast. Wow.
That's a very, very impressive. That was a big story this year. It was Bitcoin. We cannot gainsay that. But I think I don't think a story anybody really cared about, except that, well, how much do you have? Is it worth anything? And can you sell it? And whether you should sell it.
Bitcoin will be a huge story in 2018 because there's two types of Bitcoin folk. One are the true believers who see a decentralized currency and the good that it can do, and the others are, I have to get in on this because this is a potential for making a lot of money. And yes, it's a volatile thing. You can make a lot of money, but you now have people who are investing in Bitcoin with no idea how it actually works. That's always dangerous. And now with the futures, you've got people taking out mortgages to buy futures for BTC. That's horrible. The last time we did that, we crashed the market.
Yeah, that's a mistake. WWDC hit us in June, and Apple announced the HomePod speaker. Still not available. But, I credit to Apple. They don't rush stuff out. If it's not done, don't ship it. The problem is...
Unless it's an update to Mac OS or iOS 11.
Oh, yeah, those.
But if it's hardware...
No, we're good.
Yeah. This was a year of buggy Apple operating systems. Yeah. I would agree with you on that. In fact, Apple, of course, famously had the blank root password exploit.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. On Mac OS, the newest version, High Sierra. And iOS has had all sorts of, both cosmetic and I think maybe even more serious flaws in it. It's certainly driven some people crazy. But the HomePod did not come out in time to compete with a variety of other devices, the Google Home Max, which is right behind me, the 18 different new Amazon Echo devices, including the Echo Show, which was announced in, I think, May of this year, the first Echo with a screen. I think that's a good Echo.
Which is awesome because it had YouTube, and then it didn't have YouTube, and then it had YouTube, and then it didn't have YouTube.
Apple also announced in June the iMac Pro, which they finally got out the door, the Apple computer that starts at $5,000. But hey, it's in space gray, so
it's sexy.
That means it's worth it. Yeah. Automated Do Not Disturb driving mode was a part of iOS 11, and I think that may save more lives than anything else released this year.
I hope so. I mean, it certainly has the potential to, I think.
I turn it on, and certainly if you have kids, turn on Do Not Disturb so that they can't get texts or calls while they're driving.
Absolutely.
It also changed really the user interface, and it made me think that Apple is moving more and more away from Mac OS and toward an iOS user interface. They had a permanent dock. They had multiple windows, especially on the iPad Pro. iOS 11 really was becoming a desktop operating system, and Apple kind of capped that off with ads towards the end of the year that ended with the punchline, "What's a PC?" Remember those?
But do Apple fans actually want that? I'm not an Apple fan, so I'm kind of neutral on this. Do you want your computer, your laptop, your desktop to be running iOS.
Yes.
You do.
I do. I can't speak for all Apple fans, but it's more...
Says the host of iOS Today.
It's true. Okay.
I will speak for all Apple fans and say, yes, we want that. No, I mean, I think that they were getting a lot better at multitasking in iOS, and it just makes sense to have everything working the same. I do believe in that, like Windows,
Microsoft
all your
tried
devices.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole phone, tablet, desktop thing, and that, I mean, we weren't ready for it.
Well, the reason why I won't speak for all Apple fans is that I have a different use case than most people.
Yes,
like
true,
I mean, and it's a very unique use case. And I use this device. I read, I write, I respond to emails. I don't edit video. I don't do any of that like hardcore stuff. So I'm unique, but I would like it because already now my laptop and my iPad and my phone have essentially different operating systems now because iOS 11 on the iPhone 10 is very different than iOS 11 on the iPad or even on the iPhone 8. And so it would be nice if they all looked and acted a little bit more similar. And I do think that the iPhone makes a lot of sense. And the iPhone 10, the way you use it, the way you swipe through things, and it just, it's more the extension of my brain into the device for me.
I could see that.
In June, Travis Kalanick finally left Uber, first with a leave and then leaving permanently, and a new CEO search began. Took a while. When we come to the end of the year, was this a good year or a bad year for Uber? It was started bad. I mean, this was the culmination of Susan Fowler's memo that we spoke about earlier. Was the departure of Travis Kalanick. They brought in I think many agree, a very good CEO towards the end of the year, Dara Khosrowshahi. And I'm sorry, they just call him Dara. And he has done what he can, but certain revelations came out. For instance, that Uber had been hacked and that records from 7 million drivers and 50 million users had been released, but that Uber last year covered it up. Paid a ransom to the hacker of $100,000, pretending that it was a bug bounty, then asked the hacker to sign an NDA so that no one should know. This is, by the way, a violation of federal law.
Yes, it is.
And there will be, I'm sure, something. Well, we'll see.
And they're in trouble overseas. They've lost their license to operate in London. I mean, you can go down the list. There's not a lot of good news.
I don't know how you look at 2017 for Uber and think that it's anything other than a very bad year. However, the bringing, having Kalanick out and bringing in Dara, I think that sets Uber up for a good next year for 2018. Came in at the tail end. It's still really kind of early to see, but it seems like his head is in the right.
I like him
in the right place,
yeah.
And I've liked what I've seen so far. But I mean, this has been the year where there were a lot of things that you woke up every day and expected to read in the news. One of those things was, what did Uber do this week? Or what did Uber do last night?
Oh, my God. For the first half of the year,
that I went to sleep and
every tweet was, okay, Uber News, what's the latest?
And almost to a point to where it was like, why do we even keep talking about it? They do a lot of scummy things.
Let's stack all the bad news up and we'll do it once at the end of the month.
Well, and we didn't mention Google sued, Waymo sued Uber's, and in fact, the judge a couple of months ago spanked Uber, saying you're hiding details by using a deleting messaging app. What was it called? Whisker something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about the Uber
deleted
story,
it from my
though,
brain.
is the fact that, as Jason said, we've all been waiting for the next bad story, and it's sort of like, hey guys, if your leadership is listening, you got to air it all out right now.
But here's
now's the time to get it out of the way.
We're all waiting for the next shoe to
Here's
drop.
the funny thing, though. People still use Uber. I don't.
Well, absolutely. How far does that go to really changing the general consumer's kind of perception of Uber as a company from an ethical standpoint? Is that enough to get them to stop? There was a little bit of a movement, if I remember correctly. There was a hashtag movement. I don't know how much it did. I do know that 2017
delete Uber.
Yeah, that's right. Delete Uber. 2017 was a good year for Uber's competitor here in the States, Lyft, for sure. Lyft got a lift from all the bad stuff that's happening with Uber, but that did not mean that Uber lost its place at the lead of the pack.
In
still
fact,
doing pretty
it might
good.
show investors how resilient Uber's business is and give them more reason to support Uber, the ultimate unicorn, right?
At this point, they're bulletproof.
Yeah,
it feels like it. If you can have that many bad things in a year and still be, I mean, I'm not that they make money. They lose money at a horrific rate. But that doesn't stop people from investing in them. In June, the shock, Amazon bought Whole Foods. That was all the way back in June.
Dang.
Everybody went, what?
Well, the news came out in June, and then the purchase went through.
Took a while to get regulatory approval, but we heard about it in June. We spent a lot of time in June trying to figure out, what does it mean? Why would Amazon buy a brick and mortar grocery store? Do we know any more as we come to the end of the year?
Well, I mean, I think that the purchase has gone through. They are now, Whole Foods is now
You
owned
can buy
by them.
an Echo at a Whole Foods store.
Yes, prices are a little bit cheaper sometimes, and for some things, you can order things on Amazon and pick them up in the Whole Foods. The world hasn't fallen apart yet, but I think this is just the beginning. And I think, like Facebook, Amazon has so much of our data, our purchasing. Facebook has our social graph, and Amazon has everything that we buy and why we buy it and where we buy it and when we buy it and how much of it and how much we're willing to spend. And
on what?
Yeah, and I think that they're doing a really good job of telling the difference between the people who have a little bit of time and a lot of money and the people that have a lot of time and a little money, and they want both of those people. And they've gotten into some great neighborhoods, and they're figuring out all of the organic food that we're willing to pay, high prices for. And I think, it makes sense. We also, there's the Amazon Go that was announced this year too, which was the grocery store where you walk in and pick up your food and then you walk out without talking to anyone. There's some of those exist already for Amazon employees, but that's probably our future too.
This was also the year that the Bodega app,
Wow.
the Bodega store came out.
Talk about outrage.
Which is that outrage blew over.
That was weird.
This was the two bro founders who created a
vending machine. It was an
automated convenience store vending machine
with an app
called Bodega.
Yeah,
with an app. And of course, people who use actual bodegas, which is primarily, I think it's mostly in New York, right? I don't know if do we call them bodegas anymore?
We don't call them bodegas in San Francisco.
Yeah. We're very upset.
Speaking of startup resistance, the Juicero.
Juicero came and went in 2017.
It was a quick trip for
It started in the spring of 2017.
I'm still waiting for our review unit. I want to try that thing out.
In the spring of 2017, I can't remember who it was, did a review of the hardware saying, I understand why this costs so much. This is way overkill. But the death blow for Juicero was when Bloomberg showed that you could just squeeze a Juicero pack with your hand and get exactly the same result instead of buying the $300 or $400 Juicero juicer. And by a few months ago, the end of the year, Juicero was no more. Everybody who bought a Juicero got their money back, though, supposedly. So.
Now, the fun thing, maybe not the fun thing, but the interesting thing about the Juicero saga is there were two other fruit juice startups around the same time, and they were taken down by the backlash against Juicero. They basically said, in this market, with that story, there's no way we're going to be able to go public. They killed it. That's collateral damage. If you make a business plan that is so snooty, you will not just destroy your company, you will destroy all the companies around your company. Well done.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird that it was Bloomberg that outed Juicero. Bloomberg, of course, a business journal, but I guess one of their jobs is to show people that some business, not all businesses are created equal. And of course, the CEO of Juicero responded to this by begging you, please don't squeeze the juice bag. Please buy the $400 machine. The reason it's a big story is they attracted $120 million in venture capital.
Yeah.
And for what was essentially a very expensive squeezer, kind of an overbuilt squeezer.
Well, yesterday on Tech News Weekly, we talked to Mark Spoonhauer, who's the editor-in-chief at Tom's Guide, and this was one of his biggest fails of the year. And I said, do you think this is going to change the industry? Do you think people have heard that the ridiculousness and responded in kind? And he said no, according to his CES pitches. And I remembered, yes, I am also getting those pitches.
Yes.
My favorite of which is, have you ever wanted to talk to your water bottle?
I love that one. I love that one. I saved it just so I could look at it.
Hello,
So,
water bottle.
the 2018 will be the year of the IoT water bottle.
Oh, Lord. I forgot. In May, we also got a new word in the English language. Kofivi.
Ah, yes.
Kofivi.
I was actually going to name that as my favorite Twitter moment, but
We forgot. We didn't get around to
hot
it.
steaming cup of
Yeah.
Kofifi.
Despite the constant negative press, our president tweeted, Kofivi. No one really ever figured out what
That's his password.
But
he tabbed out after press, and then he went to log in his password somewhere.
Oh,
Didn't realize he had
Fifi.
tabbed back in, entered it.
I think he fell asleep.
Actually, I think his lawyer actually tweeted that. So
Yeah, that's who it is.
Yes.
Kofivi. But that is a word that I think will survive 2017
I think so,
and bring us into a new era.
Well, if Twitter could base its earnings on just pure joy that it helps
These are moments
create,
of
like
joy,
just the
yeah.
moment of, and it's this kind of this need to be the first one. Like I think it happened at 5:05
Early morning,
a.m.
yeah.
So there were a lot of people like on the West Coast, I think, that were like still up and on Twitter.
Wait, what is
They hadn't gone to bed yet.
Yeah, and just like the fact that maybe you were the first person to retweet it or the first joke, the first everything like that. That is sort of, there's a whole community on Twitter that I find joy in. But there, it's just like, I'm going to be first to make the Confivi joke because, by the day after, it wasn't funny anymore.
Yeah, but halfway into the next
Yeah.
day, you're like, oh yeah, Kofi.
It's like
Yeah.
the meme
Everybody's
ate
got the same
itself
joke.
before its full run
Right,
completed.
right.
It's weird.
And it's,
Let's see. Boy, what a year this has
let's
been
just
now.
skip to December.
In hindsight,
Nothing
this has
else
been
happened.
quite a crazy year all round.
Walt Mossberg retired. What month
Walt
was that?
Mossberg retired. In fact, that was in July. And they talked quite a bit about July was the 10th anniversary of the iPhone release. June was, I guess. And we talked quite a bit about the first 4 reviewers. And the world has changed completely. In fact, Apple, if you just look at Apple alone, in 2007 when they released the first iPhone, the 4 review units went out to Walt Mossberg of the Wall Street Journal, Ed Begg of USA Today, David Pogue, who was at the time at the New York Times, and Stephen Levy, who was at Newsweek. The print journalism was ascendant. And it's funny because here we were doing podcasts at the time thinking, gee, we'll never get we never got invited to any events. We had a hard time even getting into events at CES and so forth. And then somehow it completely passed by podcasting and blogs became ascendant. Now it's passed by blogs already and it's YouTube.
Yep.
And so if you were to say who are the first 4 reviewers of the iMac Pro, it was more than 4, but they were mostly YouTubers. And I think the same thing for the iPhone 10. It absolutely didn't go to any of those 4 except I think for Stephen Levy, who is now at Wired, and so he's still okay. He's moved to an online journal.
Well, I think what was interesting during that time is everyone saying like, oh, how did you know it was going to, this was something, the iPhone changed the world. How did you know at the time? And we forget, like our memory is so short. Like we already knew that it was going to change everything. Like it was so highly anticipated,
Oh, yeah.
the iPhone.
I remember back then, yeah.
It wasn't a shock. I mean, surely now no one could say like, in 2017, 10 years from now, you're going to go into a restaurant or walk down the street and everyone's going to have their face in an iPhone or something iPhone-like.
Yeah, we didn't know that.
No, but we knew it was going to be big. We just
I think we underestimated how big. I mean, we knew it was going to be big, but what we didn't realize, first of all, was how it would change society in that way. But we also didn't realize how it would change innovation and hardware and manufacture, because what eventually happened, thanks to Apple and the iPhone, is China became this amazing powerhouse of manufacture. I don't think you'd have Kickstarter and all the crowdsourced hardware opportunities if it weren't for the fact that Apple had gone in there and built this incredible supply chain and then was extended to other companies. You wouldn't have drones. Here we are sitting next to the Quadfather. But the technology that made drones possible first emerged in the iPhone. So and I can go on and on and on. The iPhone launched, it's the product that launched 1,000 industries, really.
Well, people were looking back at it, and even when the iPhone was just coming out, we had already well established the Crackberry. So we knew that people liked their devices. They liked being connected. And then you saw the iPhone and you compared it to the BlackBerry and you're like, oh, yeah, that's better. And we knew it was going to be at least as big as the BlackBerry. What we did not realize was that it wouldn't just be professionals and bankers and stockbrokers who would want it. It would be everybody.
Including Jason's 7-year-old daughter.
Including his 7-year-old daughter.
I'm looking at our July episode of Twit 621 for July 2nd, and this was, of course, when the beginning of the revelations, and I'm just looking at women in tech speak frankly on culture of harassment. Silicon Valley women tell of VC's unwanted advancements. Chris Sacca, I have more work to do. 500 Startups, Dave McClure, the latest VC to apologize. I'm a creep. I'm sorry, he writes. Making changes at 500.co. Sex for Funny, Silicon Valley reeling after 24 female entrepreneurs speak out. And I could go on and on and on. July was when it all started to come tumbling down for Silicon Valley in the Me Too.
See, I missed that because I was in silence that entire month.
You didn't know. You came out and you said, "Why is everybody angry?"
Well,
at us?
I came out of retreat and I thought it was a joke when they said Scaramucci had been hired and fired in the time that I was in silence. I was like, "Oh wow, okay."
A lot more than that happened. Actually, that was you're right. That was very rapid. What we didn't mention, and this has really been a drumbeat all year long, started in 2016, was Russian intervention in the election and Russian bots and it's still denied by some. Some say it still didn't happen. Mostly the guy in the White House, but I think it's widely agreed by the intelligence agencies that Russia is in fact attempting to affect our republic, intervene in our republic, not just through elections, but primarily through elections. And, of course, the big question is next year, in 2018, there's going to be another election, the midterm elections, and it doesn't seem that anybody's doing anything about this, whether it's Facebook or Russia. Well, Russia is, I'm sure, or the White House. I think this is a story that will be big in 2018,
It's going to have to be big because, I mean, it wasn't just us. They used the same system in France. They used it in Germany.
And they did intervene in the Macron election. And they did intervene in Brexit. And there's plenty of evidence of that as well. In fact, I think some say this is Putin's greatest success. In fact, maybe even Russia's greatest espionage success ever is in subverting the election process in the United States, Britain, France, and elsewhere.
Facebook's making some changes, right? They've come out on
They've
how
said they are.
Yeah.
They said, for instance, they would show us the dark ads. They haven't. They said, for instance, you'd have a way of figuring out if you were influenced by the Russians. I don't know if that's there.
Hey, Facebook, was I influenced by the Russians?
when you can go onto Twitter and you find these accounts that have 150,000 followers and it's a name followed by 6 numbers.
Yeah.
And you're looking at who they follow and what they've tweeted, and you're like, oh, that's a bot. And there's no way for me to report that bot. There's no way for me to get Twitter to act on that bot. And those bots, they follow each other and they slave to each other. And it's like, wait a minute, if I can see this and I don't have your resources, why can't you do something about this?
You can report the bot. I mean,
you can report the bot for spam.
Twitter only admitted to, when they testified at Congress, to a couple of thousand bots.
Yeah.
We know there's millions of bots on Twitter. So I think there's a sense of denial in the social media anyway of the extent of this, partially because, as we spoke about with programmatic ads, there's not a lot they can do about it. You can ban a bot on Twitter. They'll be back within hours. What are you going to do? How do you stop it? Let's take a break. We'll talk more. We're looking at the year in review 2017 with our wonderful Twit hosts, Jason Howell from All About Android and this Tech News Weekly. And his wonderful holiday shirt, his sweater. It's just the ugliest.
Sorry, this keeps flopping.
It can go any way. It can go any way at all.
Each time we talk about algorithms, you got to
Yes, have to move it
and for
over
those
to
of
the
you
other
listening, he's talking about his hat, just so you know.
Sorry, audio listeners. I have failed you.
The mind reel.
How about I jingle my bells whenever
we both
say
have bells
you
on.
go towards the direction I don't like.
Also talking about that.
The bell adorned Megan Maroney from iOS Today and Tech News Weekly. And Father Robert Balaser, the digital Jesuit from Twyet and Know How. His flops forward. Hat. Sorry. Sorry. Our show brought to you by GoToWebinar, the webinar platform. You know what a webinar is, right? It's a seminar over the web. It's the 2.7 million interactive web events this year, 60 million views. That's a lot of people using GoToWebinar. We've used GoToWebinar. I love GoToWebinar. It's a great way to give a lecture, a presentation, 1 to 6 presenters, an infinite number of viewers, both in real time and on demand. And they have all the features to make your webinar a huge success. A great way to meet prospects and customers, to present to your company, to present to your investors. With GoToWebinar, it's easy to start a webinar, custom email invitations, confirmations, and reminders, all with your company logo and custom image. Automated email templates make it as fast and easy to create a webinar as to send an email. You can create and schedule pre-recorded webinars that can be watched later but are just as interactive as live events. These technologies are really cool. It's mobile-friendly, both for you as the presenter and for the viewers. You could schedule a webinar, edit a session, track performance on an iOS or Android device with the GoToWebinar app. Create polls, too. I love the polls because as a presenter, but also as a viewer of these webinars, if you can interact, it's great. It's huge. You can create multiple polls, up to 20 of them, 20 questions per. It's a great way to engage participants. Also, to find out if they're getting what you're talking about, if they have further questions. And when you have a large audience, you maybe can't chat. You can chat, but you can't chat with everybody. The polls are a really great way to assess the audience. And you not only can do them before the session, you can do it during the session. If you're sitting there saying, are they getting this? You can literally poll them. Up to 6 presenters can share their webcams, participate face-to-face, but you can also broadcast a view of their desktops or a specific application. And the analytics are phenomenal. You'll know exactly how your webinar does. You'll get qualified leads, data to improve the webinars. It's secure, 128-bit AES, point-to-point. #1 in customer satisfaction, and now you could try it at gotowebinar.com/podcast. Turn your next presentation into a conversation. One of the best ways I've ever used to engage an audience. Go to webinar.com/podcast. We thank them so much for their support of this year-end edition of This Week in Tech. Well, here we finally are in the fourth quarter.
Chapter 27.
Oh, my gosh. It was fun to watch. I went through, going through the old shows and rundowns, looking at the speculation of the iPhone as a 10 as it slowly converged on the truth. And I have to give credit to Ming-Chi Kuo of KGI Securities, who is the supply chain analyst. Of all of the people guessing, he was the one who nailed it again and again and again. The only thing I'd say maybe that he got wrong was, and everybody got this wrong, there was the thought that Apple was going to be much delayed on getting the iPhone 10 into people's hands. It was delayed. It came out later than the iPhone 8. But on the other hand, they've been able to ramp up production. And by the end of the year, we're making 50 million phones a month, which I think is enough to feed the
for a while
supply chain for a while.
What about the speculation that they came up with Face ID as a fallback because they couldn't get Touch ID under the glass screen?
Yeah, it was June that Ming-Chi Kuo said there will not be Touch ID. It will only be Face ID. And remember that the Galaxy S8 had come out at Mobile World Congress. I think it was in March or April, Jason. Mm-hmm. And within a month, the Chaos Computer Club, the Berlin hackers, had hacked the Galaxy S8's Iris ID.
Yep.
It was pretty easily tricked. And so there was some concern that Face ID on an iPhone might not be fully secure. In fact, there's still some concern about that. Although now that it's been out for a month, there's been one case of a South Korean group making at great expense 3D printing. They had to scan the guy's face, took minutes. Then they had to 3D print a mask.
There were a lot of asterisks involved.
Yeah, it was not an easy thing
pulling
to
off
hack.
this easy thing.
And I think it's been around long enough now. I'm sure the Chaos Computer Club and others are banging on this. I think we could safely say at least Face ID on the iPhone 10 is better than Iris ID was on the Samsung Galaxy S8. Certainly faster, easier to use.
Yeah, no, that's pretty safe.
Apple's always denied that they ever considered a Touch ID on the new iPhone. And I think they've also said, and Ming-Chi Kuo is saying now, that all the future iPhones going forward will have Face ID. Be interesting to see if they add that to the iPad. Mm-hmm. There is now quite a gulf between the iPhone and the iPad. iPad Pro 10.5-inch, which had been rumored, came out middle of the year, and to great success. Also, though, Apple did something very big. They, in the middle of the year, announced a $329 iPad, just iPad, no designation. and that sold like hotcakes. Quarterly results subsequently showed the iPad sales up for the first time in many quarters. People liked a cheap iPad. It sold very, very well. Tesla this year announced a new Tesla Roadster, a new Tesla truck, and finally started shipping the Model 3.
Which was the one that got all the buzz because that was the affordable Tesla.
It also had huge problems getting the affordable Tesla out the door, and still, as far as we know, is having problems. With a burn rate of $1 billion a month, it's pretty clear Elon's going to have to go back to the markets and get more money. He's not had trouble with investors to date, but I think there are some rumblings that maybe Tesla's going to run into trouble, especially now that the big 4 auto manufacturers in the U.S. are starting to make electric cars. In fact, everybody in the world is, even Jaguar, Mercedes.
Even Le Echo there for a second before they
Le
echoed
Echo
themselves.
Remember Le Echo? The Chinese, at the beginning of the year, the Chinese TV company that was going to take over the world. They even said, we're going to buy Vizio. That fell apart in June. By the end of the year, Le Echo was the Omor.
They were nothing but an echo.
Hello. Hello. What happened to the red smartphone, the holographic display $1,200 smartphone?
That's
Is that
a really
still
good question now that I think about it. I don't know that we've seen an official release. Of course, Marquez Brownlee, he gets his hands on all these things. I think he got some sort of a look at it. But yeah, we haven't really heard much about this.
This is the problem with these announcements.
Like
People
a little
forget
mystery
about
at this
them.
point. Yeah.
But Nokia announced the return of a classic, the candy bar Nokia 3310 at Mobile World Congress. My favorite version, though, was this, the Putin edition with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. This was not cheap. This was thousands of dollars. The caviar
beautiful
3310.
Can you still buy it?
I don't know. Let's go to the website.
Buy it.
So beautiful.
I
We need
sure
to
would like
review
one of
this.
these. Yeah, it's only 159.
Wow.
What is that, rubles? 159,000 rubles?
Ask your
I
friend
don't know
back
the
there what
exchange rate on that.
159 rubles is.
Hey, Google, what's 159,000 rubles in dollars?
159,000 Russian rubles is approximately 2,703 United States dollars.
I would rather have this than an iMac Pro. I'm just saying.
Right. Well,
Almost as powerful.
would you rather have that than 2 iPhone 10s?
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
Don't buy that.
I am really tempted to click this.
No.
Bad idea.
No.
I know the problem is it's all in Cyrillic. I don't understand
You don't know what you're agreeing to.
I don't know what I'm doing here.
Do you
There's something
wanna
we've
hand
learned
over
this
your information
year.
to the site, Leo?
Don't do
That's-
that.
But I'd be the only one in the studio with a caviar
This is true.
Putin phone.
Yeah.
I can 3D print you a case for your iPhone. How about what that looks
Soviet
like?
Union phone listening to you. All year long, we knew that starting when Ajit Pai was appointed in the spring to be the chairman of the FCC, that he would repeal net neutrality. We protested. I'm looking at huge pro-net neutrality protest plan for the week of July 9th. Didn't make any difference. We commented by the millions.
Didn't make any difference.
Didn't make any difference because there were, according to the Attorney General of New York, 2 million fake comments.
Right. And you
Posted.
remember the FCC response to that was, well, for us to turn those over, that would be unduly burdensome.
Can't do it.
Can't do it.
And net neutrality last couple of days ago, as we record this last week, was no more.
And we're already into the next steps. This is, yes, that's disappointing, but we kind of saw it. We realized, look, this is something that Ajit Pai has wanted since before the net neutrality regulations were passed.
It was never, ever, it turned out, going to be up to us.
Ever.
No.
July 12th was the net neutrality day of action.
Nope.
Nothing.
But this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why is our voice not important? Like, I think what did our guest from the EFF say yesterday? Like 8 out of 10 people disagree with this. 7 out of 10 the conservatives disagree with this. This is not a conservative
I'll tell
versus
you, you
liberal
want to know
issue.
why? We didn't pay enough money to members of Congress to get our voices heard. That's really what happened. Congress got bought by the big ISPs, by Verizon, by Comcast, and that's that.
And what will happen next year?
Well, that's going to be the interesting thing. People may be right. There are people. I get people on my Twitter stream all the time. They're probably Russian sock puppets, but people on my Twitter stream all the time say, oh, you don't want the government intervening here. You don't want regulation of the internet. By the way, we're not talking about regulation of the internet. It's quite the opposite. We're talking about regulation of internet service providers to preserve a free, open, unregulated internet. These people don't want a free and open internet. They want an internet that you pay more for. And maybe they're right. Maybe nothing will happen. We'll find out. We'll be watching
for a while because the ISPs aren't going to want to prove all their opposition.
Gradually roll it out, right?
And they've already said they're not going to do any of this.
Well, yeah, the funny part is if you take a snapshot of Comcast, they have a page, a pledge to net neutrality. They've taken 3 things out, specifically that they're not going to block websites, that they're not going to throttle, and they're not going to prioritize. So they had promised that when they were saying, oh, no, we're cool with net neutrality. And now that this has passed, they have said, no, we're probably going to do that. Now, I think the next step was actually spelled out by one of the guests on This Week in Enterprise Tech 2 weeks ago. We got Chris Mitchell, who is from the Institute of Local Self-Reliance. And they've done a big broadband initiative. And the whole idea is to push this idea of the municipal network. If towns and municipalities actually own their own networks and were able to link them up, then you just bypass this. It's like, look, if you don't want to, as you promised in the 1984 Cable Communications Act, act in the best interest of the people that you serve, we'll do it ourselves. We gave you a functional monopoly because we thought that you, in exchange for a functional monopoly, would do what is right for the people. If you don't want to do that, then we no longer give you that functional monopoly. We take that power back. And we've already seen that work in over 200 cities and towns in the United States, most notably in Colorado just a couple of weeks ago. So there is a motion, there's a movement here that could render the FCC, now the FTC, completely moot.
There is, of course, a battle over this, and one of the FCC rules is that municipal Wi-Fi or municipal regulations on net neutrality are illegal. They don't supersede federal regulations. There's also been a very strong move in all the state legislatures across the country to prevent civic Wi-Fi because it competes with the businesses. So there's a fight, and we're going to see it in court. Already more than a dozen states have said we're going to sue over net neutrality. This is going to be the battle of 2018, is to preserve a free and open internet.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see how that influences the election going into 2018.
I bet it won't.
Well, I'm curious to know that. And we actually asked our guest from the EFF, Ernesto Falcon.
What did he say?
That yesterday he seemed to feel like it absolutely would.
I hope so.
I would hope so too, but I don't know. Like, at what point does this bubble up beyond the people who really kind of have taken the time to read up on net neutrality and what it really means when you get down to the core, up into kind of the public knowledge of it.
If you talked about things like zero rating, what T-Mobile's doing with Binge On, which is a violation of net neutrality, it's favoring some companies over others. People love it. It saves them money. Nobody's going to say that's bad. But the minute an ISP says, oh, you want to look at Instagram, that'll be an extra $2 a month. If they ever go that far, I think you're right. But I hope they're smarter than that. We'll see.
They'll be smarter than that for a while until people forget. And then they'll say, oh, hey, you know what? Netflix won't cost you anymore, but it will count against your cap. Now, if you want to use Comcast streaming service, that's completely free. That's how you're.
That's zero rating, and I suspect that's the sneaky way it gets in.
The sneaky way.
And they wouldn't.
They were already doing zero rating.
They wouldn't say if you want to look at Instagram, and because then just Facebook would pay that. But like if you want to look at Twit for extra $2 a month, maybe that smaller.
Well, that's why it hurts us, and if companies like YouTube can afford to pay any bounty that the internet service provider asks for access to its customers. Hey, if you want Leo to watch YouTube, you better pay us some money. It won't be Leo paying; it'll be YouTube paying. YouTube will do that, but Twit, I can't afford to do that, and it would absolutely hurt us if it started to cost people a lot of money to watch Twit, but didn't cost them money to watch YouTube.
And remember, in places without net neutrality, like Portugal, this has been the big example during this entire debate, they actually do charge users more per service. So there's the social plan. Well, we'll give you Facebook. And then there's the new social plan that also gives you Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And they have tiers that you add on to your plan. Now, there's a lot of people from Portugal who are just accustomed to that, so that they don't see a problem with it. For us, that would stand out like a sore thumb. That's like, wait a minute,
the entire history.
This thing I used to be able to get to, I now have to pay you extra, and you're not the provider of that service? And hopefully, they're smart enough to realize that's not going to fly.
Yeah.
This also is the year that Europe started to influence the internet here in the United States with the right to be forgotten, and now GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation.
They make it hurt.
It will go into full effect in May of next year. But already companies are responding. For instance, Facebook added a page where you can delete your data today, which you never could do before. You had to wait for a while. It would make your account inactive, et cetera, et cetera. I think you're going to see more and more of that, and I'm not sure that's a bad thing. I have mixed opinions on the GDPR, but I think in many respects, if the U.S. isn't going to protect our privacy, well, it's good news. The EU might. They may overstep. They have overstepped. Right to be forgotten clearly is a technical challenge. But I think that some of the things that the GDPR does are going to call American companies to account, and rightly so.
Well, what the GDPR will do is it will actually allow, if the United States were to format something like that, it would allow them to levy fines that actually hurt.
Yeah.
Because, for example, the Hilton breach, where it wasn't just that they lost customer information, it's they lost customer information, they didn't tell anybody about it, and they basically assumed it doesn't matter because ultimately they were fined like $1 million. It may not even $1 million. I think it was under $1 million. It was one of these, that's not even a fine. That's a rounding error. Versus if you did the exact same thing under the GDPR, we had this on Twitter a while back, it would be something like a $300 million fine. Okay, that hurts. And now they actually have to take it seriously. So thank you, EU. You've done good.
In August of this year, of 2017, Marcus Hutchins was arrested. Some called him the WannaCry hero. He was the guy who figured out that WannaCry had a kill switch, this ransomware we talked about, and triggered the kill switch. He was in the United States. He wasn't at DEF CON, but he was out here during DEF CON. I'm not sure exactly what the distinction is.
Oh, he wasn't at DEF CON?
He was around.
He was around.
I thought he was like giving speeches and stuff at DEF CON.
He was just doing a thing.
I thought he was like the hero of DEF CON and then got arrested.
I didn't get to go this year. I was in silence.
And in any event, as he went to the airport after DEF CON, he was arrested. He's still in he's in the United States. He can't leave the country, but he's not in jail. He says he's enjoying life. And there's some question about what the indictment, which hasn't been fully revealed, contains, what he did. It seems to be as a youth, he was involved in creation of malware.
They're getting at him for that. They're basically going back through his history and they're saying, you did some bad things before you did this good thing. And it's probably true. We'll see. Well, that will play out. But I mean, the big juxtaposition was, here's a guy who did something good for the internet. And you got him on charges from years and years and years ago.
And it does have a chilling effect on people who want to come to the United States for conferences, security conferences, and so forth. A great many people will not now. And that's been going on for a couple of years. They just don't trust the federal government not to prosecute them for legitimate research into security. And that's kind of a problem.
I chatted with him over Twitter because somebody on Twitter accused me of saying that he started WannaCry. Like, they called me out. They probably called you out too. But it was like me, and it was, it was vaguely sexist, attacking me as a woman sort of thing. And
so you don't know anything.
Right. And so, I just chatted back and forth with him because he responded to it. And, I said, I don't think I said that. And I'm sorry if I did, and love to talk to you. Of course, he can't talk to me, but he was a very nice person, and I do feel bad for him. But it's one of those times where you can always reach out to people when they start attacking you. And he wasn't the one that attacked me, but like he sort of did believe that everyone at Twit was saying that he had started WannaCry. So
I actually walked into that thread because I felt too good about myself, and I thought this will be a good way for me to
feel bad about yourself.
Yeah. That happens. That's very good.
Yeah.
Twitter's made for that kind of innuendo, and people believe. And just a little word of warning to anybody who reads stuff on Twitter and believes it. At least look and see. We make all our video available. You can watch what happened and see if you agree. People say stuff on Twitter that is not necessarily accurate. Oh no, I've lost what I was going to do for the next thing. It was a big story. Darn it.
Equifax?
James Damore.
Oh,
Damore.
James.
Yeah.
James Damore. The admitted on the Spectrum Google employee who wrote a memo saying, well, maybe we shouldn't be so active in hiring women because women just really don't have the skills to be programmers. They're really good at social stuff.
Right, but we also can be hysterical, and we can. Our brains don't work the same way.
It was a very strange.
It was
strange
strange.
Pseudoscience.
He of course got fired.
Yeah.
Within a week. It took Google a little while to figure out that this was going to be a problem. The memo had come out months before. Circulated it privately at Google. Once it became public, it became such a problem for Google they had to fire him. I bet you he's got a pretty good job now. I don't know.
The last we heard of him, he was saying it was because he was autistic. That's why he wrote this.
Right. That was November.
Which was offensive to a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
I love that it opened this conversation because I really do think that it did open a conversation about are there just a bunch of liberal bullies in Silicon Valley?
That was his point. Partly was that it wasn't okay to be a conservative at Google. It wasn't okay to have conservative points of view. But he ended up hurting a lot of women because the strong implication of that memo was you don't deserve to be here, or if you do, it is in a diminished role. Mm-hmm. And he works with a lot of very accomplished engineers at Google who are probably better than him. In fact, his managers and other Googlers said, no, he's a low-level employee, and this is not representative of our point of view here.
And yet this memo came directly to their inboxes. Basically everyone got a message saying, if you're a woman, you might not be as good as the person sitting next to you because they're a man.
Very hurtful. Yeah. But anyway, that was, again, kind of one of those things that blew over. I don't know if anything changed.
And it was so strong, therefore.
Yeah.
Therefore, a
But
week
remember,
or two.
Google had been fighting for months earlier in the year to prevent the Department of Justice from seeing hiring information that might have implicated it in discriminatory hiring practices, particularly with regard to gender. They didn't want to tell people how many women were in management roles. They didn't want to tell them whether they were getting, most importantly, were getting equal pay. And I don't know what came of that, but I don't think they ever did turn over that information, even though the Justice Department demanded it. I think they managed to get off. There was a total eclipse.
Not of the heart.
Of the sun.
Of the sun.
A lot of people went up to see that. A lot of beautiful pictures. And then, was it Neil deGrasse Tyson who said, what's the big deal? This happens all the time.
You know what? Probably eclipse glasses would make a great stocking stuffer.
You can get them for real cheap.
Don't use
I'm
them
gonna buy
immediately. There were, in fact, and I don't know who would do this, people put eclipse glasses with fake ISO certifications on Amazon that would not, in fact, protect your eyes. Amazon refunded people's money. But I have to think there's millions of plastic eclipse glasses out there that don't, in fact, protect you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can get a 10-pack for still $9, which seems like a lot.
I'm sure there'll be another eclipse soon. Might as well pick
Save
some up.
now. Save that money now.
I feel like the eclipse glasses thing was one of those examples of how sort of desperate we are. Like we feel like everyone's like, where can I get them? I'm going to get them. I'm going to hoard them. It's just this general need to have things that is sort of crazy because then it was like, I need it. And then we couldn't even see the eclipse here. And probably a lot of places.
Okay, so when I woke up on
we had
Eclipse
clouds.
Day, I hauled ass down the peninsula to find a place that didn't have cloud covering just so I could see it. That was fun. But I had 10 of those glasses from Maker Faire. They were just giving them out, so I got a stack and I shared them with all the people
that's
around me.
nice.
It was
You didn't
fun.
share one with me.
John had them. That's right.
You did? No. You did?
I seem to remember getting one at some point, I think.
Oh, you got one. I don't know. See, I don't even remember.
There's a gift on the desk waiting for me, but I mean, it did me no good.
In September, Apple invited people to the new Apple Park campus to see.
And that was the bigger part. It wasn't the announcements of products. It was, I want to see the theater.
The campus was Johnny Ive's 2-year project, Johnny Ive's new product. And he said, really, we treated this like a product. This was a design not for you, said Johnny Ive, not for anybody but us. We made the campus ours. And truthfully, that media center is pretty amazing with the world's largest floating carbon fiber roof entirely on a glass. The escalator and stairs down into the theater. It was a pretty impressive place. I didn't get to go, but I talked to people who were there. I doubt I'll ever get to go, but that's okay. Apple announced the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10.
The iPhone, forget about it, and the iPhone 10. Basically.
People did buy the iPhone 8.
They're still buying the iPhone 8.
And I think a lot of people prefer the iPhone 8, but I think it's also...
Inquirer.net, they say, the iPhone 8 Plus is available on the same 20 gigabytes tariff, but will cost you £67 per month. Sky Mobile is offering the iPhone 8 on its Swap 12
I don't think
and
you said
Swap
the wake
24
word. Did we say
plans
the
with
wake word?
pricing starting at £32 per month
Stop.
for 500 megabytes data.
Cut it
and
out.
Unlimited calls and texts for Sky.
Nobody likes you.
Really helpful suddenly. Too helpful.
I don't know what the cost in pounds is, and I don't care. I don't
even feel like you said we were talking about Apple.
I triggered it somehow.
Talk about me. Talk about me.
Yeah, what
says
about Google?
Home.
Yeah, what about me?
Feeling left out.
I feel like it's looking over my shoulder now.
Yeah, it is. Pointed right
in
at you,
September,
Megan. Don't worry.
Uber announced the hire of, let me see if I can do it, Dara Khosrowshahi.
That's
Khosrowshahi.
good. I like it.
Khosrowshahi.
We practice.
He had been at Expedia for 12 years, transformed Expedia, made a big difference there, and he is now the CEO of Uber. It's too early to tell whether he's going to change that company culture, but he's doing his best. And I think it was widely agreed that was the right person. After so many speculative, Jeff Immelt of GE was strongly rumored. Pretty much, if you were
Meg Whitman,
Marissa Mayer. By the way, Verizon also bought the desiccated remains of Yahoo and renamed it all to Oath.
Oof.
The worst corporate name in America. Oath.
But I mean, Oath still has a lot of value. They've got almost 2 billion exploited accounts. So, I mean, that's
Marissa Mayer
worth
got
something,
her
right?
golden parachute. Nothing.
Everybody wants
Haven't
those
heard from
accounts.
her since, although she did testify in Congress about the breach.
Yes.
After
the sale.
After the sale, yeah.
Her life is a little less complicated right now, right?
I don't know. She has 3 kids.
Oh, well,
It's as complicated as it can be.
But
Yeah,
the big story
in other
from
ways.
that, from Oath, from all of that, is the fact that just 2 weeks ago, they finally pulled the plug on AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Today is the day.
No, 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, today
Yeah.
as we're recording this,
There we go.
we should just now we're out. You've outed us, so we're recording this on the 16th. Yeah, the 15th for air on the 24th. So
Yeah. Mostly.
December 15th. So
Yeah.
9 days ago.
There you go.
9 days ago, AOL Instant. What? It doesn't calendar schmalender. It doesn't really matter. The Red Sox were busted for using an Apple Watch to steal signals from the Yankees.
As you do.
I would. Who wouldn't?
I think that's actually a great ad for Apple.
Google acquired the engineering brains from HTC for what, like $1 billion?
Yeah, and the thought going into that was that, or at least the rumors were pointing to, oh, Google's buying HTC like it once bought Motorola. Is this a good or a bad idea? Instead, they just kind of bought a bunch of people.
Yeah, and HTC
not
said,
not HTC as a whole, but just a bunch
HTC
of
said,
HTC
we're still going to make phones. There's no one here to make them, but we're still going to make them.
An algorithm will make them.
We're hiring all the BlackBerry folks. They're coming over.
Yeah.
Big story, of course, one of the biggest stories of the year, Equifax.
Yeah.
It got breached 143, 157, 100, who knows how many records exfiltrated from Equifax, the credit reporting company that knows everything about every American. And one could pretty much assume that your information was in that hack. But helpfully, Equifax put up a website at another random address that didn't really seem to be Equifax, but was offering you a year's worth of free credit monitoring, which would then, of course, convert to paid credit monitoring.
Yeah, of course.
Because if you can't make money on a data breach, what can you do?
No, even better than that. If you can't make money on your data breach, then what?
What's the point, right? What's the point? It wasn't until September Facebook finally admitted, yeah, the Russians bought $100,000 worth of election ads in rubles.
Yeah. Well,
Our good friend and dear contributor Jerry Pornell passed away in September. It was a great loss. We love Jerry, and We made a nice tribute to Jerry that week. In fact, you probably could find it on youtube.com/twit. We were sorry to lose him, but he was a great contributor for many years to our network. Boy, I think we're almost to the end of the year. Have I missed any massive stories that happened? Equifax was the big one that I'd almost missed. Uber lost its license in London. We mentioned that. The iPhone 8 came out, then the iPhone 10.
We briefly mentioned the 280 characters, but...
Oh, Twitter, 280 characters.
Right.
That has not, as everybody thought it would, has not ruined Twitter. In fact, it seems to have made Twitter kind of a better place.
More usable.
I kind of understand tweets now.
Yeah.
Many tweets in the past have been completely, cryptic to me, or now make sense.
Not as much mental gymnastics going on.
More white space. You can hit return, put a blank line in.
And then very recently, I didn't read up on this, but I think I saw the news that they are kind of doing some sort of an official solution for threading. Is that right?
They are.
Right.
You can
so
say this is part of a
to
thread.
share a tweet storm now.
Okay.
There we go.
I never did like tweet storms.
Also, another big story since we last mentioned Bitcoin, I think it's risen to about $50,000.
And it's back down.
And 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
It's up. It's down.
It's up.
You know what is up and down also were the stories that Sprint and T-Mobile would merge. Then they wouldn't merge. Then they would merge.
T-Mobile is like the poison pill.
Then they wouldn't merge.
They look like the perfect acquisition target until you actually start getting into it.
Last time I checked, Sprint and T-Mobile are not merging. No. Actually, that's good. We want 4 big cell phone companies.
Do you think AT&T will try it again? They had to pay that $1+ billion termination fee last time.
Still, by the way, in limbo, the AT&T Time Warner acquisition. And there's an investigation going on, and some say it's politically motivated because Time Warner owns CNN. That's being held up right now by regulators. So there's nothing to report there. That's been going on all year. Google announced a Levi's jacket that you could only wear 10 times and couldn't wash for $350, and then took it back.
That's even better than that Putin phone thing. Yeah.
And I still haven't seen my smart pants. I was promised smart pants.
We were promised smart pants. Where are they, Google?
Pretty sure that's 2018.
Really ask
they
that.
got the jacket out this year. They got the
Where
pants out
are my
next year.
pants? Google, where?
You got an outfit. At that point.
You want to chime in on that one, Google?
This was the year Apple decided that if you tweeted uppercase I, you really should get an A and a question mark.
Okay, good.
I saw recently a decal that said A question mark heart New York. I love that. It was primarily celebrities that didn't notice that autocorrection.
Yeah.
Even though it has been fixed.
I think this was also a general trend over the year of people sort of regretting what they had created. There was, around the iPhone anniversary, there were a lot of people, I think Johnny Ive said, like, sometimes I do regret, like, that we've, created this phone that is taking over people's lives. Two people from Facebook. First, the Napster guy, who his name is Justin Timberlake.
Sean Fanning.
Sean Parker? Or
Sean Parker.
Sean Parker.
Sean Parker.
He said he regretted being part of Facebook. And then just recently,
this week,
someone else said, whose name I can't pronounce, also said that. And
Mark Wahlberg regrets making Boogie Nights.
Rightly so. Yeah. He said, I should never have done that.
There we go.
Especially that picture at the end.
That's right.
Never should have done that.
So a lot of
dropped his pants
apologies, a
years
lot of
before.
regrets.
A lot of apologies, a lot of regrets in 2017. I have no regrets. I feel like we had a great time.
I enjoyed it.
On 2017. And I look forward to gathering again next year to look back at 2018. Let's ask, as we close out our year end, what do you think? I didn't prepare you for this. The big stories ahead for 2018. What will be the trend? What will 2018 bring? And you don't have to be innovative or original. You can come up with something that you just think. Let's start with you, Jason Howell. You look like you might have an idea.
Yeah, I mean, and it's probably the safe answer, but I feel like regulation is kind of a big key point going into 2018. I think a lot of these big, like we were talking earlier, these really big companies have lived their lives very successfully at the top of the heap. By moving fast, breaking things, and I think that's going to start slowing down a lot. And the EU's already kind of putting things into place that's placing pressure, setting precedent for the United States and for other countries to kind of follow suit. And I don't think that the tech companies will have much choice but to oblige and to, hopefully that helps to kind of clean up shop a little bit so we don't find ourselves in such muddy water as we have.
Megan, what do you think the trend will be in 2018? The trend?
I do not think we've seen the end of people pulling away from Facebook, like we talked about earlier, and thinking, maybe I don't want this to be my social network. And I don't think we've seen the end of the Me Too movement, of women coming out and saying, that I was treated this way, and people, apologizing, people leaving quickly. Like I said before, I do think that there is a zero tolerance policy, and I don't know where it ends. But I hope it doesn't end where it gets so bad that women start being not believed again.
Yeah. That would be a bad pendulum swing. I agree with you. And I think that that's not going to happen. I think that we'll look back and feel like there was kind of this crazed, frenetic frenzy of accusations. Some of them overblown, many of them not. But I do hope we don't have a regret about that. I hope what we do is we learn the lesson of it, and men particularly moving forward learn to behave better around women. Father Robert, what do you think 2018 will bring besides a return to Rome for you?
Indeed. I'm thinking that 2018 is probably going to be the year of machine learning, of neural networking, not just as a buzzword or a research topic. You're actually going to see some major manufacturers who are baking it into, especially security products, because that's one of these places where we need it. We need something that can actually learn from attempts to disrupt a system, how to keep that from happening. I think a corollary to that is we're also going to see a major screw up with machine learning. There's going to be something.
Oh, huge.
There's going to be something that some people who are going to figure out how to game machine learning on a particular vendor, and it will be used to.
We've seen hints of that already, right?
Yeah. So, and I think 2018.
Google giving weird answers to questions.
Precisely. But worse than that, because with this rush to get machine learning into an actual product, there's going to be unfinished, untested technology. And anytime you have unfinished, untested technology, you get really bad results. So there will be at least one really, really bad result for machine learning in 2018.
I think 2018, the chaos will deepen. This has been a very chaotic year with the news coming fast and furious.
Oh, man. The new normal.
As Silicon Valley has been rocked by that, but so has the rest of the country. It's been a very tough year. But most importantly, I think 2018 will be the year we can safely say the headphone jack is gone for good. I think that's my number one story.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
2018. I'm not making any value
judgment. It's a thing.
I'm just saying this will be the end of the line for the headphone jack 2018. Yeah, folks, we have always had so much fun. We feel so lucky to be able to do this show. I mean, this is amazing that we can get together and talk about tech every day, and that you give us the privilege of joining you in your daily life, whether it's in the car, in your home. We thank you so much for listening and watching and participating. We couldn't do this without you. I thank my great colleagues, not just the four of us in front of the camera, but the many people behind the camera who work so hard to make TWiT happen, like our producer, Karsten Bondi, and our studio manager, John Slanina, and our CEO, Lisa Kensel. Actually, we got married, so Lisa Laporte, who in fact keeps the money flowing in so that we can keep the cameras and the lights turned on. We have a great team here, and it is a real privilege and honor to work with them and to create this for you. We thank you so much. I wish all of you a very peaceful and happy New Year 2018. And we will be here for you each and every day. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, everybody. Have a great New Year. Happy Christmas if you haven't celebrated yet. Happy New Year. We'll see you next time. Another TWiT is in the can. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Have a happy New Year, everybody.